are live.
We're going.
Hold on one more second, I think. This is like the weird transient point where I'm talking slowly. People are actually watching. There's a slight delay. There we go. All right. We are live. What's up, guys?
We're back.
What's up, man?
Yeah, we did last week. We didn't do it live, so this is like our return to live with everyone watching. So I will intro. We are so lucky. We're moving this to Wednesdays, and we are lucky enough to have Greg be our first Wednesday live with us. So everyone, Greg Helton is you do a lot of different things, and outside of just like muscle sport, I don't even work with muscle sport, and I know you. Like, I've never even taken your products, and I'm friends with you. So like you're just an insider. I'm gonna get that dig a couple more times in this podcast, just so you know.
Yeah,
but
I know.
For everyone who may not know you, could we talk a little bit just to get into this, like your background? I know you actually do have some traditional education in marketing and stuff, and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I wouldn't say traditional. Most of my background, especially like through college and everything, was more design and creative. I did minor in marketing. I'm minored in marketing, and I guess you'd call it a minor in psychology also. So that's what I guess kind of drew my interest in marketing. But I've been a designer my whole life. I mean, I used to love fine art. I was into painting, drawing, everything like that. And then somewhere between my transition from like high school to college, I figured that that's not going to make me any money, and I better do something that does. So that's how I got into kind of like more traditional graphic design. And then from there, it was, again, that's not really going to make me super, you know, as much money as I needed to make. And I got into marketing. I guess like in this industry, I guess back from like, I was 19 years old or so, maybe 18. It was right before I got, or like right as I got into college. I got into like working out. I mean, I never worked out through high school. I played sports. I wrestled. I played baseball. And then, you know, like my first year of college, I started just getting fat. I'm like, all right, I have to like do something. A couple of my friends started going to the gym. I mean, I've never been into it at all. I've never taken a supplement. I've never done, you know, anything. So started working out and got super into it over the next 2 years, got really into like taking, you know, cool new pre-workouts. Like back when I first started working out, like the hottest thing was Jacked. So I was, you know, obviously it was that. I done everything back then, all the bullshit. I'd taken Pink Magic by USP Labs back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I know. MHP was big. And then a lot of the people that I was looking up to, like some of like more the New York like fitness competitor scenes, like Chris Villa. You had Dan on here, you know, Ryan Hughes, obviously before he was with Ghost, even before he was with BSN, he was with Gaspari, and he was kind of just like a celebrity trainer here in New York in the city. So I kind of got, you know, I started following these guys. And then I guess what got me into like designing for this industry is I would just hit all of them up and be like, hey, do you need any sort of branding? You need a new logo? You want me to do your website? And I would just like, while I was in school, like in any of my classes that had a computer, I would just work on things that other people were paying me for. So I guess probably the first work I did in the industry was with Ryan. Do you remember that he had a Blast program? It was like an ebook series that he had for working out. They had Blast for Mass and some other ones for like kind of like a diet program. So I redid his logo, some of his, so I guess some of his designs for all that, and some of his apparel. And then it kind of just snowballed where like I started doing work for Chris Villa. I started doing work for John De La Rosa, and then a little bit of work for some of the brands that they were affiliated with, which was like All Max at the time, MHP, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know if any of you guys know Matt Acton, but
I know Matt Acton. Yeah.
Yeah. So Matt was like the first men's physique pro, like when they first started the division. So he was kind of like a local legend around here, and he worked at Shredded RX, which is like one of our local. I'm sure if anyone has a brand here, obviously, you know, Jacob, you might. I don't know if you sell anywhere on Long Island, but they have a store that's about 20 minutes from here. So I met Matt through there. He was the manager at the time. And he was like, you know, listen, I'm kind of working for this company, Musclesport. And this was going on 8 years ago now. He's like, I know you do design work. You want to come in and maybe do some like t-shirts for us? Like, all right, cool. So I went, I met the owner. I was going to school full time, and I was a personal trainer at the time. And I worked with Jay, who's the owner of Musclesport, on some just freelance work, just did some designs and whatever. Ended up going in a few times, meeting them, talking about labels. And then kind of like, I had nothing to lose at that point. So I was like, let me just, give some feedback. So I was like, this current branding you have sucks. I don't like any of this. Like, I don't like, this is super old school for what this industry is. I'm like, would you mind if I just take a crack at it? So from that point, I started doing some of like the other designs for them, some of like the, like Facebook covers and just anything, any little random work that I could do to kind of like dig my way into the industry. And at one point, Jay was like, listen, man, he's like, I don't know if you want to keep personal training or if that's what you want to do for the rest of your life, but if you want, I'll offer you, a full-time position. He's like, you can start a couple days a week while you're still going to school. And then when you graduate, we can turn it into something full-time. So basically the day of my graduation, he was like, do you want to just do it full-time? So I didn't even walk in graduation. I went to work. So I quit my personal training job and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So back like when I first started, that was like 2000, I guess, end of 2012 or so. There was no marketing for Musclesport. I mean, it was just kind of Jay, Rob, who was the VP of sales back then, and then a couple guys doing manufacturing. We had like a 3,000 square foot warehouse, 15 minutes from my apartment right now. And so I was doing everything. I was invoicing products. I was shipping things out. I was packing in the warehouse. I was setting up our Facebook, our Instagram, like right when Instagram first came out. I was kind of trying to manage like the influencers at the time. We had a couple of them. They were mostly like competitors and things like that. And then it kind of just grew from there. I don't want to say that I built a team around me because I still don't have anyone else in the marketing department, but like we went from 3 employees in like an oversized closet to now we have 3 different offices and like 70 employees, something like that. So
that's crazy.
And I've been there since. I haven't worked for another brand. I've just straight up with Musclesport for
which
coming
is even
on.
crazier.
Yeah, honestly, that's rare.
Yeah, that's super rare.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I like that you touched on right there is you get all the people that, you see Instagram and you see brands and things like that. And people are like, well, I want to do that. And I want to work for a brand. I want to be this.
Right.
You've been doing this for a long time. I mean, you're young, but you've been, like I said, it's been like basically 10 years within the industry, getting yourself to this position. I think a lot of people need to hear that when they when they say
I did a ton of free work, man. A ton of free work.
Thank you. Yeah, because well, and like what you're saying too, like Musclesport, people know the name now and they know it's a big company, but a lot of these companies, it's 2 people, it's 3 people, and exactly what you just said, man. You have to do a lot of free work, and we've all obviously been in that position where it's like,
okay, I'm still there, man. So
so am I.
Every single day. Right. It's like, okay, at some point you're hoping that you get paid for these back hours that you're doing. But I think everybody just sort of take a second and digest what Greg just said about his path and what he had to go through to sort of get to this point. And now, because when I first met you, maybe like a couple of years ago, I was like, wow, I didn't know. And then I'm like, man, everybody. Like, he knows everybody, because it's like, a lot of people just, the industry is kind of small in ways. And it's like, you sort of meet people to a lot of relationships and things like that. So I think your story is really a good example of like what it takes really to sort of get a strong foothold in the industry as a person, in this space.
Yeah, for sure. As far as like knowing everybody, I think that's kind of like, well, that's what everyone says. They're like, how do you know everyone in the industry? Like, I started off just talking to everyone. Like, I still to this day, I think I was listening to Dan's version of this, like earlier today. And he was talking about like competition within the industry, but like, as much as I do have competitors, like there's a ton of shelf space out there. So like, I'll talk to everyone. How many times, Ben, even a couple times has hit me up like, hey, do you know someone who could do this? And like, whether he worked for NutriBio at the time, or if he was doing something for another brand, like, I'll always help anyone, just because like, what's it going to do? It's not like, is my one little networking help going to really like let you take over our shelf space? No, I'd rather be friends with everyone in the industry. If if it's possible. I'm young. I plan on being in this industry for a long time. It is really, really small, as big as it looks, but that's big for me.
Yeah. We actually have one question in the chat asking, and it's really related to this. Do you feel branding takes more priority in sales instead of formulas to the general public? And I think that just because you give someone help meeting someone, even if you gave someone like your manufacturer or your formulator, right, like that person is not going to deliver anywhere near the way that you will. Not saying that's better or worse, but everything is like, should be so differentiated in this industry.
Right.
Just giving someone a contact is not going to sacrifice your shelf space.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I mean, I guess Jay might disagree with me on this a little bit, but I think branding is 100,000% more important than the formula. Not to say that I'm not saying the formula is not important, but this is a relatively saturated industry. And like, even if you look at something like apparel, like to forget about supplements for a second, like you're talking about Nike and Under Armour or whatever, like you can read that tag and you know if it's 60% cotton, 40% polyester or whatever, like you know what it's made out of. You realistically, a lot of these brands are probably being manufactured at the same places anywhere. So like what does separate a brand? And like there's no better thing to separate a brand than how you market it or how the branding looks or the culture of the company. So yeah, I mean, not to say that like formulas and the product, because that's, you know, that's the bread and butter of what you're taking. Like the marketing is definitely more important in my opinion, especially in terms of like separation.
I think you embody that really well too. Like Greg is like talks a lot about branding, but if you bring up regulatory affairs or like formulation, like you can keep up. But in my opinion, like formulations, like I love formulating, but to me, it's just like a constant. Like it has to deliver on a feeling. And as long as it delivers on that, I think that like, you know, Glaxon has like some really aggressive formulas and stuff, but that percentage above the rest of the industry that they deliver on in terms of feeling, if you have someone like Ghost that delivers on community and support and stuff, a lot of people are going to overlook that 10% better product.
Oh, 100%.
Oh yeah, most people do. I mean, that's a fact. Even though like people like us who, you know, we know the nitty gritty of formulation and we go after those things, but the mass market is going to go after whatever they feel drawn to as a community. Like, oh, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of something bigger than me. So I agree with that.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because like obviously you guys see how Musclesport and some of our sister brands kind of promote within this part of the industry where we're on Stacked or we're on Fitness Informant, or at some point maybe before 2025 we'll get on Price Plow. But you know, like realistically, and like like I hate to say this, but like, and I love it, and I love having these partnerships, but like that's not our customer. Like if we shut all of that off right now, like I really don't think we'd skip a beat in terms of sales, and that's just because like this is like the people that truly follow this side of the industry and like follow the insiders that talk. Like I do this kind of thing because I love it. But that's the 1% of the 1% that buys product. You know what I mean? Like if you go back to like my high school or to even like college, like how many of those people that are even like super into lifting or super like in shape or they're Olympic level athletes, how many of them are paying attention to like the industry insider stuff? And it's probably not many. So like it's mass appeal is definitely like where the focus should be, but that doesn't mean that you can't do cool things like what Glaxon's doing. Like I don't think they're formulating for the masses, but they're doing some awesome innovative stuff. So like I think that's cool, and I think that's what like, and I heard right before I hopped on here, like during their last episode, that they were starting to like some of their new products that are coming out are going to be more targeted towards like less of like a niche consumer and more the masses, and I think that's smart. I think you could do both.
And I think they do a good job at not to hop on the Glaxon train today, but I think they do a good job of like constantly keeping their niche like changing. Like it's like a forward movement, because I never can pinpoint them what they're trying to appeal to. And so it's always a moving thing for them, but and like a lot of brands. So
I think one thing too with them, but also bringing it back to Musclesport, is there's a lot of experience there. You know, you've been there, you've seen things, you know, because there's so many, you know, brands can get started so easily. We have this conversation all the time, and people have this false sense that you can just sort of walk in there and then you have all this momentum because it's so easy to call up the manufacturer and maybe write a check and, you know, next thing you know, you're off and running. But now you're getting into where you're competing with people that, you know, you've been there for, you know, 10 years. Jay, I don't know how long Jay's had Musclesport, but I mean, Jay obviously has a lot of experience. And it's like, you know, it's business. You're going into war with these people that have systems in place. And it's like, that's why you get run over, because it's such a false sense. But you see somewhere like Glaxon, people were surprised how quickly it caught on. But it's like, look at the people that are behind it. It's like experience, you know.
And that's kind of the thing. Like the bar to entry is super low. And I know you guys have talked, like everyone in the industry talks about this, but there's a clear difference between those that think that they could just write a check and start a brand. And then like, once you start getting into it, like when we're vertically integrated, so we manufacture everything ourselves. We have no contract work. We do everything in-house, you know, like we do all of our social media in-house, we do all of our marketing in-house, all of our sales is in-house. We don't really have brokers. We have inside sales reps that don't live here. So they have an office in Utah. So it's, you know, for us, like there's so many, even at the scale that we're at, like more now that at the scale we're at, there's so many challenges that you just don't really, that most people who maybe just want to start with 500 bottles of a pre-workout because they know that you can get it for a certain amount of money and it's not going to break the bank. Like they don't understand what those challenges are until they start to actually try to scale a brand.
Mm-hmm. And wait, so that was just recently. Did you guys just recently move into like a new manufacturing facility and warehouse?
Yeah. So when I started, we were here in Farmingdale. We had everything under one roof, and it was a tiny little place. Then we moved about 20 minutes out east for 3 years. It was still under the same roof. And then like a really nice spot opened up where we wanted to just, you know, let's take the brand and we wanted to expand the manufacturing facility, but we couldn't because we wanted to be able to hold inventory at the same time. And we just didn't have enough space. So we grabbed kind of a smaller space just for the brand. So my office was there, my VP of sales was there. Some of our ops people were there, whether it's like customer service or it's, you know, shipping logistics, they were there. And then we kept the manufacturing as its own entity. And then we just recently moved that manufacturing facility into one double the size. And we moved the brand also. So we've been like, it's crazy because we signed 5-year leases, and then I don't know why we do it because we're gone from wherever we're at in 2.5 years. So, and then we stretch it. So like, but I think we're where we're at now, we're pretty good. The one thing in the future, we may end up actually coming back together and just getting a way bigger spot, just because it's a lot easier for us to, instead of like sending a truck back and forth and, you know, skipping a day on when we have things in stock.
So one of the things that is very interesting about you guys is that you're like incredibly talented at digital marketing, but you guys are also pretty heavily brick and mortar. Could you give us a little bit like a flow chart of how that happened? Because I know that like you guys were originally very brick and mortar, but you are talented at this. So you brought a direct to consumer in afterwards. If I remember correctly, that was secondary, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. So Musclesport, the reason Musclesport started is because Jay, the owner, he was a partner in a manufacturer, the actual manufacturer that started the total nutrition chain. So they're prevalent all over the East Coast, more so, but like, you know, 3 or 4 years ago than now, and now that's kind of not even a franchise anymore. But so like one of his biggest things was how do you provide like a third party brand that gives that house brand feel? So like Jacob, you have your own brand, obviously. So you know that like when you're selling that in your store, that you're getting higher margins, and you know, like you can stand behind it because you're going to support yourself as that store. So Jay's idea with Musclesport was kind of to be that. So like we wanted to be every brick and mortar retailer's house brand. So we wanted to be able to have extremely high website pricing so that if someone walked into your store, they weren't going to be able to scan a barcode and have you compete on price. Whereas like if you're getting a bottle of C4, they can obviously grab that on Amazon or Walmart or whatever for 13, 14 bucks a bottle. Like we didn't want to do that. We wanted to take an industry that was that like, just, you know, how digital is getting. So, and absolutely like owning a store now is extremely hard because of the landscape, especially during something like this pandemic, you know? So we wanted to be that support. So when we started, we offered, you know, we maybe had 10 clients back when I started, like 10 to 15 clients. And they were all like what we would consider like exclusive partners. So we would give them preferential pricing. They would have miles and miles of territory exclusivity, and they would never have to compete because we weren't on Amazon. We weren't on, you know, Netrition or any of those like Nutrition Depot, any of those, you know, websites that were whoring out product left and right. Like we were the house brand, but we offered, what we wanted to do is kind of like offer that mainstream marketing. I think that's kind of what he was missing before I came on. Because he was like, oh, you know, we have to focus on marketing towards our brick and mortar like retailers. And I didn't agree with that. I kind of thought like, no matter what, we have to get the appeal to the consumer. And then on the sales side and on the business model side, we would support our brick and mortars, and that's it. So like, how do you have that house brand, but still drive external traffic into a store? And I think that was kind of like the biggest challenge for me. And then at some point, you know, like we have to shift digital a little bit. So I would say realistically, even right now, we're still like 93% to 7% brick and mortar to digital. So like, it's still our bread and butter, like by a long shot.
Yeah. Cause that was actually one of the big things that I wanted to talk to you. That was awesome. Like with the way, because a lot of people are totally in the dark about how that whole system sort of works out, because a lot of people have different approaches. And it's like, one thing that's always fascinated me about muscle sport, because people will be like, well, a lot of people want to get you to their website because then they can get your information. They can get your data and things. Some companies just want that. Right. And where it seems like, you guys really are aggressive with, hey, we have our website, we have our digital book, and then you have the approach of, sites can't necessarily like list the products online. Right. They can just go in there. The whole situation is fascinating to me about how you guys balance that out. So I was going to ask you about that, but you really hit on that. Really, I was going to say, like, I'm like, look, I've never done that before, but that seems like that would be the hardest shit ever. Like, there's no way.
You know what it is? It's so hard to expand that way, because like we have a limited team, like we still run on an extremely slim team. I mean, in our main office, as far as like departments go, like forget about warehouse, forget about, logistics, things like that. We're really only like 6 or 7 deep, which is crazy. I mean, and that's 6 and 7, a couple of us split time with the manufacturing facility too. And obviously we also own 10 brands or 11 brands now. So I'm sure we'll touch on that at some point, but
like, I just tagged Kodiak and Musclesport. I didn't go for all 12, just so you know.
Yeah, no, that's those are the major ones, so that's fine. I probably couldn't name all 12 without like writing them down right now, so.
But like Liberty Labs right here.
There you go. Yeah, that's one of them. So like I think like the biggest challenge with that, it was like also like we're making a promise to retailers that our stuff's not going to be hoarded out online, but as you expand, like you're not just dealing with 20 top tier accounts, you're dealing with 50 lower accounts and and still 20 top tier accounts. So how do you get those people to now not put it online, or not backdoor it through Amazon, or not sub-distribute it to some other Joe Schmo supplement store who's going to do all the above, and we don't even have the contact for that. So that's definitely a huge challenge. But
I was going to ask you, like, speaking of that, like, whose idea was this? Because this is like the best shit ever.
That was Jay.
Pandemic.
Yeah. Did you notice the flavor on that one too?
Have you seen this one? So it's the fake news flavor, and it's got a little
fake news
flavor, pandemic pre-workout.
I love it.
Look good too. Anyway, I got that the other day, and I was like, this is freaking incredible.
So how do you manage all that? Like between because like I dealt with the B2B stuff. I dealt with the fake Amazon stores. PricePlow actually does unauthorized seller notifications as well as map notifications for a lot of brands. Right. It's a nightmare. Like it's absolutely a nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, there's like, I can't say we're perfect, like you'll hear people in our industry, especially if you're in some of like the retailer groups that I'm in, you'll hear people like Steve Calibrate. Yeah. Like, so you'll like Steve at Natural Body, you'll hear.
I can't read that shit.
God.
I got kicked out.
You got kicked out? I don't think I'll get kicked out, but I'm one of the only like brand managers left in there, I think, because I'm pretty.
So I never read those stuff. Not to cut you off, but like,
I might get kicked out after this.
Yeah, I never read those groups, but every once in a while, somebody will send me a screenshot of something that you say. And, like when you get fed up and you just like go in, I'm like,
who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, because and like I keep it friendly. Like I try not to argue with anyone. I have very limited enemies in this space. There's a couple, but like. And I wouldn't even consider them enemies. We've just had our differences. But like in that group, my problem with it is like you have a bunch of people who own businesses that are just screaming about a problem, but not trying to solve it. So it's like, how, like, I get it. Everyone hates Redcon because, they sell everywhere. But at the same time, like, do you think that they're spending that time thinking about you the way that you are them?
Right.
Nope.
Like spend that time to like evolve your business model and be successful anyway. Like they're not going to change. You know what I mean? Like I try not to spend a lot of my time on things that like I can't change. And that's the epitome of that group sometimes. So I just like, I give help, I give support when I can, I give my opinion without kind of ripping on anyone. But realistically, like you're not gonna scale or get anywhere if it continues the way that group is continuing.
There was a real pivotal week in that group a couple months ago where they all thought that they could gang together and have enough brick and mortars complain about Redcon that they would change their ways. Right, and the week after that, Greg made the greatest post of all time in that group where he was like, tell me exactly what a brand can do to make all of you happy. And it was like asking a woman. It was like asking a woman how to be like the perfect boyfriend. Like, yeah, they're like, first you need to let me read all your text messages. Then I need to see where you're going all the time. Share your location at all times. And
Well, that's where I
frustrating.
actually, like, for the first time I got a little fed up because like someone in there was like, well, if you're going to do ads, like I want to see what you're targeting. Like, no. What do you mean? Like, do you give me your customer information for who walks in? Like Jacob, if I sold in your stores and I was like, hey man, do me a favor. Everyone who comes in and buys a product, can you give me their email address and their contact info? You'd be like, get the fuck out of here. That's just not realistic. Like, and I'm not going to go that above and beyond when I'm not getting anything like that in return. Like, that's the other thing is like, it needs to be kind of like a symbiotic relationship. So if I'm going to be providing you with some sort of value or some sort of like any sort of benefit where you're going to use me over someone else, like I better get that same thing in return.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like if I'm offering you a territory, it's because you're hitting a certain amount in sales that allows us to not have to expand to stores in your area. Like that's symbiotic, right? You scratch my back, I scratch yours. But for some of these guys, it's like, I'm not going to bring you in unless you give me a territory.
No. Well, and so like I left that group because people complaining nonstop about exactly what you're saying.
I'm not
like,
surprised at that at all.
No, I was in and I dipped out. I was like, this is bullshit. This is the reason that people do not open multiple stores. This is the reason that people stay a small brick and mortar their whole life, because they're not taking personal responsibility for their lack of growth.
Right.
And everybody's over here complaining about the brands. Guess what? I mean, people who are watching, this is not a serious statement. I could carry shit in my store, but if I believe in it and the culture that TNS has is recommending it, like it's going to sell. And I'm not saying we carry shit. We only carry pretty reputable products, but I just got tired of that pessimistic mindset. So I was like, I'm out. So,
yeah. And like, it's the hypocritical part of it too. It's like the same people that are screaming about brands not doing the right thing are the same ones that are selling DMAA and SARMs. It's like, bro, like you're like on one post, you're going to come in here and say like, hey, you know, like I have my own SARM brand if anyone wants to pick it up. But on the other end, you're going to be like, this brand's not legit.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean?
I mean, yeah, from what I saw in the group, it was a bunch of people that, and I've been in a few brick and mortar stores that, you know, they're great, whatever, but they'll just stand behind the counter, kind of a little heavier set, you know, middle life. Hey, how's it going? Don't say anything to the customer at all.
Yeah, man, go work at Walgreens.
Like they expect the brand to sell itself. I'm like, man, what are you doing?
And that's kind of my argument is like, if my brand sold itself, why do I need you? Like, no offense to stores or anything like that, but like,
totally agree.
If I could reach the customer and cut you out completely and grow the way that I need to grow with zero support, like, why would I sell in your stores? Like, why? I mean, even if it was flipped, like if I owned a store, like, why would you sell in my store? I wouldn't expect you to, because there's no value in it.
I remember one of the biggest comments on there being like, I want you to generate demand for your product, but then I want to have the best pricing on it and you not steal my customers, which really is a catch-22, because if you want me to develop the demand, why would I give you 40 points on it if I'm developing the demand?
Well, if you're worried about a brand stealing your customers, you're not doing marketing in your local area correctly. Like that's
exactly it. And you're not providing value above and beyond standing there and being a shelf.
Exactly.
Because that's what it is. Like, if brick and mortar wants to stay in business, like in general, you need to provide value that Amazon can't give you or that my website can't give you. And most of the time that value would be someone like you who actually knows your customers. And obviously you know enough about supplements, ingredients, and, you know, diet, nutrition, where you can actually help people. Where like, if you go and buy a product on Amazon, you have to do your own research and you have to hope that you know what you're talking about and you don't end up on some bro science forum. So like, if you're not providing that value, no one's going to do it for you. And like, the other hand, like, people want us to create demand, but then they don't want us to advertise online. What do you want? I mean, at that point, do you want me to pay for billboards in your area? You know what I mean? Because that's like, what else could you do? So, and that's kind of like my biggest thing with that is like, no, they don't think through the problem in that group enough. And like, you obviously know if anyone's, you know, Ben, you're still in the group, right?
No, I got kicked.
Oh, right. Okay. So when you were in the group, like I'm professional and friendly with my responses, but I'm serious about them. So.
Yeah, I actually only added Jacob to that group for him to see like the negativity out
well,
there.
No, like well, at first, man, because when you added me to it, Ben, you and I had just met and I had just opened my store. I didn't know anything about the industry. I had no clue about how retail worked. I'm like, oh, maybe I can get some advice from these people. And then, you know, as months go on, I realized, and you know, that group actually taught me a lot. It taught me about what kind of retailer I don't want to be. And, you know, we're not like, I see TNS as a brand. I don't see us as a store. and everybody's it was just a different kind of mentality on.
It was just like in Lion King
business.
when he brings Simba to the top of the thing and he's like,
don't go there.
Don't go there.
Right.
That was really all I was doing. I was like, hey, this is like,
no.
It was a good educational thing.
It taught me. Yeah, it taught me a lot, no doubt.
So I was going to ask too, you know, a lot of people, once people work for a brand, it seems like for a while, they eventually want to branch out on their own, start their own kind of company. Well, you did kind of, but you sort of stayed away from supplements. You went into the black sales thing, which I think is really cool. And it's sort of like, I don't know. I didn't know like how, I don't think we ever really talked about how that sort of played out. I know you went in with somebody else and you're starting to branch out into different areas away from supplements, which I think is a great idea. So I didn't know if you could sort of talk about like how that sort of process sort of came about with the black sales.
Yeah. I mean, that like black sales specifically, I'll explain kind of like why we chose beard oil to do that. But for me, it's more like if I was handcuffed where I was at, like I have a lot of freedom in terms of like branding and kind of taking the brand where I want it to go. Like obviously there are certain things that I can't, if I wanted to change certain things, I can't do it obviously, but I'm not handcuffed here. So like I have freedom to kind of like Jay trusts me enough to just go my own direction with branding and marketing. Like I don't have to send my ads or designs to anyone to be approved. I mean, he'll obviously see our labels before we get them printed and say, I like that, I don't like that. But like in terms of, you know, working for like a big corporation or anything, like I don't have to create a Facebook ad and then get it approved by someone. Like it just goes, the messaging just goes, I just do whatever I want. So like in a sense, it is like having my own brand that I don't have to pay for. You know what I mean? So I guess maybe like being in it for as long as I've been in it, if I was super handcuffed and unhappy, like it's something that I would consider, but I'm happy. And on the other hand, like why I have branched out into other things is because like I get bored easily in terms of doing like one thing. I don't like being defined by one thing either. So like black sales, I thought was kind of a cool thing because I took what was the closest that I could find to supplements, which was like beauty and cosmetics, and figure out a way to make it cool. Because like beauty and cosmetics right now is, I feel, as weird as this sounds in terms of like the direct to consumer side of things, it's a little bit behind supplements. Like there's not many direct to consumer like cosmetic brands that are doing it right, in my opinion, especially like in men's care. You know what I mean? Like you'll see in the last couple of years, like Dollar Shave Club and Manscaped, and like those people are doing it absolutely right. But then that's really it. I mean, like I can name maybe a handful of brands that are doing it like the legit way and getting big by doing it. So I thought it'd be cool. And I thought that there was a niche missing on Amazon too, which we were pretty correct about. Like there's not a ton of competition, but there's a ton of opportunity. So like the opportunity score is pretty high on beard oil. So we just wanted to do something cool. And I mean, we started a brand like the month before the worst global pandemic ever hit the country. So it was like, I can't tell you that it was any worse timing, especially with Amazon, because Amazon went like strictly essential for a little while. So it was like, cool, we're getting all this traction. We're getting our ads rolling, you know, everything's working really well. Hey, if you guys run out of inventory, you can't ship it anymore because we're only taking essentials. And unfortunately, pirate themed beard oil was not an essential. So I mean like that, like, so I thought it was cool. And the dude that I partnered with it on, he's actually our QC guy. And like when I say that he is an absolute genius, like he has a PhD, he's my age. He actually may be a year younger than me. He has his PhD.
He's very smart.
He is hands down one of the smartest people I know. Huge into keto, but not like bro science keto, like the legit like science behind ketogenic. So he me and him wanted to do it, and I can tell you that like that beard oil is probably the only micro batch beard oil that follows like every GMP process, and probably more than some of the major brands do. So it was cool. It's definitely a fun experience. So I mean, doing that, it's just trying to get my hands in different things. So I do that. I do Musclesport, and I trade options like a degenerate.
Well, and that's one thing that you just touched on there that I think is, I agree with 1,000,000% is the cosmetics and beauty industry. I've noticed that too, like being more involved, like the parallels between supplements and then that. My wife is like really into like cosmetics and things like that. What you notice with women and stuff is kind of because it's almost the same thing. Women spend so much money just hand over fist on this stuff. It's really companies all doing things the same way, because it's kind of easy, and I don't want to say easy, but like what you just said is noticing that there was some companies you're like, you know what, I think we can do it better, than they did.
Right.
Coming in with the Amazon, which when you launched Black Sales and I saw sort of, and I mean, I'm not, I don't know everything about this stuff, but I was like, I kind of see like what you were doing there. And I was like, I think this is going to be really successful. I was like, this is a really good idea. It's a niche that hasn't been really touched on. It's really high quality, touching the Amazon area. So I thought that was cool. There's a lot of parallels with supplements and like cosmetics and beauty. And I think it's such a huge, we talk about this all the time in the supplement space. It's so small. And
right.
we make it smaller. There's a lot of people out there that can use supplements, but it's hard to reach them. But when it comes to like beauty stuff, I mean, that's like that's a big, wide open market there.
Oh yeah, especially the direct to consumer side. Like, I mean, you're never going to go up against like L'Oreal or like MAC or Sephora. Right. Like those are kind of like set in because of how long they've been, and they started in retail, and now like it's kind of the same. Like they're still retail. If my girlfriend buys makeup, she's not buying it from MAC directly. She's going to Macy's to get it anyway. So like it's still kind of not direct to consumer. And you'll see even in some other categories, like if someone starts disrupting that direct to consumer market, they get acquired. Like look at movement watches. So movement watches is like kind of like a huge one for me. I think that's awesome because I remember when they started on Kickstarter. So like I'm pretty sure it was two guys that just said like, I want to make cheap watches, sell them for $45, $50 or whatever, but they're going to be the same quality and the same movements and the same everything as, Movado. And they obviously disrupted that market so much that Movado spent 100 million to get them off the competitor side. So, and I think that's cool. I think there's something to be said about like, you're seeing like, especially during this pandemic, a lot of people who kind of had to like pivot and make something out of nothing. And you're seeing like smaller, people who never really like owned a business. They're starting their own businesses, whether it's like baking really cool cookies and selling them to people on Instagram or doing whatever. Like all these little niche businesses are coming up where like you don't need to have your MBA or go to finance school or do like it's these normal people that are seeing opportunities and just taking them. And I think that's what I love about direct to consumer as a whole. I think you can do a lot with a little at first.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's funny. I just wanted to say, I think as someone who uses a lot of beard oil, I thought the similarities between them and supplements was ridiculously hilarious. The amount of excipients that go into the stuff, the GMP processes. Like when I started, I make my own or I purchase it from like small companies that I actually know that manufacture it. Like I thought it was the funniest thing in the world, how similar it was. And just like the way that you talk about it, like you don't really know what's in your beard oil. You don't actually know the dosages.
But no one cares.
Yeah.
Like that's what's even crazier about it is that no one cares.
Yeah.
So like the same people
going on your body, not in it.
It's going in your body anyway, man. Yeah. But like that, but the thing is like if the same people who are bitching and moaning that there's 3 grams of beta alanine instead of 3.2 grams, like they don't know what they're putting in their shampoo or wearing on their body or like washing themselves with soap or having beard oil or whatever. It's like it is hilarious to look at the similarities and be like, you care about this, but you don't care about this.
Mm-hmm.
So
I totally get it.
Cool.
So how much of the, like in the process of all these brands, because you say you don't have any other designers, like you are kind of a one-man show and a lot of the responsibilities that you have in the process from ideation to shipping, how much are you involved? Because I'm not a designer, but I've been that guy that wears a lot of hats in a similar way to you at a brand, and it can be really overwhelming.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes like on the one side, I love having the control because I get to like, I guess like kind of approve every single part of the process or just like if it's not working with someone else, like just do it myself kind of thing. But on the other hand is that takes a ton of time and it's super frustrating. So like if you want to go through, let's just say like a product launch process in general. So what we'll do is I'm part of like the R&D process also, where it's, we'll have an idea for something and the idea for something will either be based on like the business case will kind of be based on like a hole in the market or literally anything else, like obviously you saw the pandemic thing. So that's just something fun that we decided to do during, current events. And we took some pop culture references and we kind of brought it into that. And that brand, like that's kind of just for fun at this point, but that's a good example of it. So let's say we're launching a protein and we think that there's a really cool flavor that no one's ever done in the industry before. And we think we can make it really cool and we can definitely make it taste good. So like I'll be, sitting and it's not organized meetings. Like we don't have board meetings. We don't have we're just starting now. We're trying to introduce kind of like a stage gating process, whether So we're not just launching products willy-nilly. Like we get votes and we get, is there a real business case for this? Or is it just 2 or 3 retailers said it'd be really cool if you had this product and we decided to spend $1 billion making it. So like, so now we're trying to put those processes in together where we might end up saying no to a lot of products more often than we did before. But so I'll be into that process. And then for me, like everything's visual. So, and it's same thing for Jay. Like it's sometimes like he really won't even formulate a product or get like a master done. So a master is kind of like what you create before you start a batch record and actually start the process of manufacturing. So before he creates a master, I'll usually get something designed. So, or at least get something fleshed out. It's not definite, but like here's your inspiration. Look how badass this flavor looks. Now like formulate to make it taste as good as it looks, kind of a thing. So, and then I'll be in that process until the end. I mean, I deal with a lot of our label vendors myself. I'm not the one, placing the purchase orders most of the time. Like sometimes I'll jump in and do it, but I'll be either like one of my label vendors is actually like, I can look at their building from my window right now. So I'll go there and either, look at a proof or pick something up or, kind of like go over materials and finishes and whatnot. So I'll be in that process the entire time. And then once that process is done, my mind flips from creative to marketing. And it's like, all right, now I have to get 3D renders done and I have to get the websites ready for this to launch. And then I have to actually come up with kind of a launch strategy. And that's going to be everything from supporting our sales reps. So like, what kind of content can I create that they could send to their accounts that's going to get them excited? What kind of pre-order graphics can we do? And then it's like, then I kind of flip over to, all right, how am I going to promote this through Price Plow? How am I going to promote this through Stacked? Or maybe not Price Plow, but sometime soon. Yeah. How am I going to promote this through Fitness Informant or whatever? So it's then like the whole relationship aspect comes in. It's like, all right, I have to text these guys and get them excited about it. I have to show them pictures. I have to send them things, and then it's like, that's where kind of the nightmare begins, because it's like, now I'm not in full control anymore. And now I have to wait for all the ingredients to be here and the labels to be ordered on time and the neckbands to be done or whatever it might be. And then that's, I think, where the most frustrating part is like the parts that I wouldn't mind handling every single part of the process. It's kind of like at that point where you have to start relying on other people. And that's when it becomes pretty tough. And I'm sure you obviously know, because you're not going to be the one that's actually mixing the product or placing the purchase orders or paying the bill to get this released or that released, So it's tough, man. It's definitely tough.
And those review sites, man, those review sites are needy as hell too. They're tough to keep. They're brutal.
Trust me, I know the amount of shit that I get from this one bald guy about not sending him product.
There's something that, or because you mentioned earlier about how the marketing and the those aspects of it, the visuals and things, but because I remember sort of first started coming in this industry, and Musclesport was one of the early adopters to these big, expensive, fully dosed kind of formulas though too. So kind of ahead of the curve a little bit. And is that sort of maybe helped you just more focus on marketing, do you think, like down the road, as you haven't had to really like catch up with the demand of the customer now all of a sudden, because you've already had these, fully loaded formulas for a long time and they were like premium. Now you're sort of like, okay, let's dial in the marketing. Is that sort of how you kind of seeing it play out? It's just from an outside perspective, it kind of seems like that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. I hate chasing. So like, I guess like when our first fully dosed pre-workout was Rhino Black when we first came out, and that was in either late 14 or early 2015. And that's like, at that time, I think the only ones, and I'll give credit where it's due, because I know like there's some people who've been like, who've like given shit to Rhino Black because, like we copied the open label thing. Meanwhile, now everyone has it, but like pre-gym obviously was like the one that was doing it or whatever. I think Devastate was actually one of the earliest non-prop blends from Inspired. I didn't know about Devastate till after we created Rhino Black, but I got a ton of shit for copying it apparently. But I don't know. It is what it is. Like but I do think that they were one of the first couple to do like the whole like fully disclosed, and it was a bomb ass pre-workout from what I've tried. So I think the
original white cut was insane. It was just
the white cut is actually the only one that I've tried. But yeah, I mean that's so like that is. So that kind of like in terms of like not chasing, what I mean is like we don't have the budget of Cellucor, you know what I'm saying, or any of these major brands. Like I can't spend that amount of money. So like if everyone else already has something, so like that's our edge. You know, like what's your edge? Okay, we do some cool things with marketing and branding. That's great. But like we do more, I think what I think at least is more innovative. And I throw that term around super loosely because I don't even know the definition of it anymore in this industry. But like we try to do something more innovative before anyone else does it, or like at the cusp of when other people are doing it, because I can't spend more than you. So
Yep.
we're gonna beat you somehow, like in another avenue.
Being first is tough too. Sorry, Ben, I was gonna say being first is tough too in this industry, because then you spend how long trying to explain to people why it's cool, and then by then someone else is already caught up to it. So being first, you know, I like that kind of approach. It's like, you know, being in the know of sort of what people are talking about, and that's what helps. Like I think what you said, that's helped probably all of us, is just talking to people, just nonstop. You know what I mean? Having relationships with people, listening to what people have to say, and getting feedback, and then that way you're able to sort of, okay, this is kind of catching on. Let's maybe pump something into this. So I think
for sure
being first in this industry is definitely overrated too. But being, you know, on that cutting edge though can be, you know, huge, like what you were saying.
Yeah. And it's getting harder, obviously, because like I said, like what does the word innovation mean now? Like how much can you really innovate in terms of product? Like for one of the things that like Jay actually says this a lot, and it's one of the things me and him agree on like 100%, where you're talking about like quality, and like a lot of people will tout quality or whatever they do on their manufacturing processes as like that's their innovation. So my thing is this: yes, there are bathtub brands and there are brands that kind of like that do things wrong or mislabel or whatever, but like at the end of the day, quality is not a selling point. It's the law. Like you have to do those things. Just because some brands aren't doesn't mean that like that's one of the, like, it's great that like I love what NutraBio does. I think NutraBio does probably the best job at it. But at the end of the day, like that to me is not innovation. That's just how it's supposed to be. And it's like it's almost sad to use that as a way to say that it's innovative. The only like because it's not, I mean, it's not innovative. Like every brand should be quality and following GMP guidelines and doing the things that they have to do, you know what I mean? And then like that's kind of like even the playing field that way. And if everyone had to do that, the bar to entry would be a ton higher.
Yeah, we have that, Ben, we have that conversation a lot where people say, well, I do this, and we're like, well, you're supposed to do that. Like it's a loss.
Like here are my third-party tests. Everyone has to do a certain amount of testing, you know? So there's but there are brands, like I said, like NutraBio, that definitely go above and beyond, and they do a great job of marketing it too. So you can't hate on that either.
My favorite thing to do at NutraBio, once we, you know, after I spent 3 years preaching it, was then people started freaking out about it. And I was like, hey, by the way, this is all just what's required of us. Like,
right. Yeah. I mean,
you know, like we're actually not going above and beyond here. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like, or then yesterday, sometimes Jacob and Justin have to listen to me rant about stuff because I need somewhere to put all of it. And we had a certain, he's probably watching, and this is great, but like we had a certain like really, really engaged like person in the community that like asks tons of questions, wants to know where people are manufactured and all this stuff. And like one of the reasons like I really don't care for all of this is like he was going off about like how, well, this brand only tests for a portion of their panel. They never do full panel testing. And I was like, hey, by the way, have you ever actually looked at NutraBio's testing? I'll check my subs. They test for like 5 ingredients. Like they don't test for the whole thing. Like, you know how expensive that would be? And when the truth comes out,
you'd go out of business. I mean, it's not possible.
Yeah. When the truth comes out, people are like, oh, I don't know who I can trust anymore. I'm like, dude.
Same people you trusted before.
Yeah. Like, I promise you, it's gonna be okay. Like, just chill. You know, let the professionals do what they know best and just take the product.
Right. Yeah, so. I mean, and not for nothing. Like, I think this industry, maybe it doesn't, maybe it does. It does kind of a good job of like weeding out the dirtbags. And by that, I mean, like lab tests will float around when something's not right. Now, whether those lab tests hold water or if like the general public gets a hint, I mean, not for nothing. What was it? Right before the pandemic, maybe 2-3 months before, or maybe even a little bit more, there was a list of like, of the guys here on Long Island. And there was like 700, right. Yeah. So there's 700 brands on that list that needed, like, the FDA literally couldn't go in and recall specific products. So they just listed 600 brands and they said, watch out. You know what I mean? So like at that point, like, did that affect the industry at all? Maybe for like 3 days. So it's like, obviously people don't care as much as they thought they did, because I've seen protein tests for some of the biggest people in the industry testing at 40% of label claim. I don't think that their sales have gone anywhere. So it's like the people who care, they'll do their due diligence and they'll take whatever. And the rest of the people will just do what they do when they go to a bar, and they'll take whatever anyway.
Yeah. Well, the ODSP doesn't have the manpower to enforce on all those 700 people. Also, 700 people are like as far back as what, like 2012, I think it was.
Right. There's so many like not only are there brands that are named like other brands, like Ghost is on that list, but it's not Ghost Lifestyle. Right. It's some other random Ghost brand or whatever. So like, number one, I would probably send a letter to the FDA and be like, are you guys fucking kidding me? But on the opposite, like, I'm sure there's brands on there that probably had like a multivitamin done 7 years ago, 9 years ago or whatever, because they couldn't manufacture it themselves for some other reason. And they just outsourced one job, and now they're on this list. It's like, you guys didn't do your due diligence, but you made enough people hate us. Like,
yeah, Nutrex, like, people got their freaking pitchforks about it, and Nutrex was like, all right, listen, this was manufactured in like 2016, and so like if you really do have this lot number, like, fine, call us, but chances are you've thrown it out by now.
Well, there was one brand that
I was gonna say that I think the Ghost thing was kind of interesting too, because when the Ghost name came up there, like, people just, you could tell, I mean, when agendas come up and stuff like that, people touted it all over social media about how Ghost, and then I remember getting like 1,000 questions. I was like, it's not the same Ghost, but it spread so fast. It's just like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's what sucks about it. And then you can't, like, any sort of defense on that. Like, you just, at that point, you have to just ignore it, because like, going and actively defending it just makes more people wonder what's going on. And then it's like, you know, how can you really prove it? Like, that's not us. This is probably some, like, we've never manufactured on Long Island before, but we're not going to tell you who our manufacturer is. So like, it's so hard, you know, like, what are you going to do? So at that point, it's better off to just ignore it. I mean, I did see Dan comment in some of like the supplement groups and whatever, and be like, this is not us, just, you know, a heads up or whatever, whether it's on Fitness Informant, Price Pile. And that's, at that point, like, what else can you do? You know, like, that's probably the most that you can do.
And I mean, let's be honest, there are people with an axe to grind about a lot of these companies. Like, people were so ready to take Ghost down. They're like, this is it. They're done. Like, this one, like this, you know, this is what's going to be, this is like the, you know, that huge company Ghost, like this one little letter about Ghost Nutrition is just going to be, it's going to take them all down.
Yeah. That's not even a thing. Like, I mean, it's the same thing in every other industry too. Like, how many things can come out about like mainstream energy drinks, or what's that milk company, Fairlife, that just got dragged, right? They got dragged over. So, I mean, not for nothing, but like, I go to gas stations a lot, and they also have Fairlife. So, I mean, it obviously was not that bad.
Yeah.
And so here's a great point about it too, is did you see the response from Fairlife?
I saw multiple responses from Fairlife. I thought they were decent.
Yeah, where they said that it was, you know, they pull milk from local farms, and that one farm was where the issue was, and they no longer use that one, and they actually upped their SOP on finding, you know, safe farms or whatever. But 99% of the people saw the warning about Fairlife and never saw the response, and it ruined the reputation because you know, that communication wasn't there. So,
and that's, you know what it is, it's tough because it's, especially in like an industry that's like, people say that supplements are underregulated. Like, I think they're overregulated. I think that there should be different regulations, but I do think that they're overregulated, like to a micro level that most people wouldn't care about, and it would do no harm. But regardless of that, it's more like, there's some parts of this industry that you just can't talk about publicly, because it's like, and I hate to say this, but like, everyone doesn't need all the information, because not everyone can process it at the capacity that they would need to understand it. So what that means is, like, if you're a big, let's say Muscle Tech, just because I don't know anyone at Muscle Tech. So let's say Muscle Tech used that Long Island manufacturer. You have no idea. Like, that could literally be, they could be using themselves as a manufacturer plus 4 other contract manufacturers to deal with overflow jobs that they have to do, or anything. Like, they couldn't get this certain ingredient, but that manufacturer could, and they might have just tested a product or a flavor system at this Long Island manufacturer, and their name was on a list. And the thing is like, it's so hard to explain all of that to your consumers, because number one, how do you do it? Do you take up the marketing space that you have to sell your products and get people involved in your brand? And do you use that to explain at such an in-depth level that most people would get lost anyway, or not believe you? Like, I mean, listen, you know, 2020 is cancel culture to the max. Like, you're seeing it with major celebrities, you're seeing it with businesses, you're seeing, like, how many Facebook groups I've been invited to where it's like, defund this local business or whatever it might be now. So it's like, everyone is out to have a voice and ruin the man or the corporation, and those corporations sometimes can be like someone like us that's 7 people in an office. You know what I mean? Right. So it's tough. Like, at that point, do you do what you probably should do and just ignore it completely? Or like in Fairlife's case, you need to give some sort of response, but you can't harp on it, you know, because like you just need to let it leave the news cycle at that point. Because most people don't understand. Like they think that Fairlife is beating cows, you know, like it's not how it happened. It's not, they're just using a vendor that they vetted to a certain capacity and didn't know what was going on.
Well, something too that you said there that was funny when we had Dan on here. Dan's like, it weirds me out so much when people are like, talk about how big we are. He's like, we're not big. He's like, we're not big at all. It's like, you know, it's a couple of us. He's like, yes, we're, you know, popular with our group. He's like, but we're not a big brand. He's like, it's always like weirds me out when people talk about, or you know, like what Ben was saying, that people see them and they go, I would really like to see them fall because for whatever reason. And it's like,
because you hate your life and you want to see other people who are successful do shitty things. It's like the weirdest thing to me.
And he's like, man, I don't get it. Like we're not big, like at all.
Yeah, but I'm on his side with that in terms of like we're not big. Like we might have a pretty large footprint in terms of like we sell to like 70 countries. You know, we sell all over the United States. We're in Vitamin Shop. We have a ton of direct to consumer clients, but like we're 7 people in an office that go out to dinner with each other once in a while. Like it's a slim team. It's a small, like you would look at the decision making behind our brand and be like, wow, that's it. You know, like when I think of big, I think of like, again, like Muscle Tech, Iovate, who has a 5-story building and the 4th floor is all legal. Like that's big. That's corporate. That's like a conglomerate at that point.
Yeah.
So I mean, that there's a different level, I guess, for what you're seeing as a consumer.
I agree. Yeah. I think there's probably only one company in this industry I'd like to see burn. I'm gonna leave it
in our industry, or is it multi-level?
Oh, the MLMs, I think they all should burn.
Yeah.
That's a little different though. That's a little different.
Can I have a hint then? This is juicy.
Yeah, what just happened?
I feel like you guys should just know this.
Shit.
There's like good people and then there's just like bad people. You know, I was talking about this with Dan earlier in the day, and I honestly feel like even if this bad person in the industry goes to jail or whatever,
okay, fair enough.
like I just feel like when I was coming up, like I thought BSN was like evil for some reason. Like I just thought they were like the establishment, you know, that like we're like
little do you know.
Yeah, you know, and I feel like no matter what happens, like there's always going to be someone at the top that has like, you know, that supreme control over that shady side of the industry. Even if it's totally compliant and everything, there's just like that dirty factor. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm
definitely on here.
I'm definitely with you on that. I understand. Same thing.
I was waiting to see how far Ben's going to go down this road.
I was going to let you do it.
I'm not digging my own hole in this one.
I'm just going to stay quiet and let him just keep. See how far we're going to go.
I don't need to see another cease and desist letter for a little while, so I think we're good.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to do that. But I think what you said is interesting, like on the regulation thing. I really agree with how you said it. I think that we're over-regulated, but if anything, I would shift it. I'd keep the same amount, but in different ways. I think that we have really dumb regulations in some ways, and I'm very small government minded, but there are some dumb people in this industry that if there were not regulations, they'd be doing some irresponsible things.
They do.
But coming out and saying that N-acetylcysteine is like some horrible ingredient that we can't use because there was a drug application in 1986 or something, like I just don't think that's like who cares, you know? The whole
I'm with you.
Like Tudka was applied for a drug once with the FDA and it can't be an ingredient. I think that's ridiculous. Like I just don't care. I do think that the DASCA Act is really helpful though.
Yeah, I agree. I think again, like maybe overregulated was just incorrectly regulated is probably a better term. Like you said, like I would shift the regulations, like have as much as there is now, but shift it to things that actually matter to people's health. And instead of just kind of like punishing brands for doing things or whatever, because like if people were doing everything right, like we say that the bar to entry to this industry is low, but realistically, if everyone's doing everything the way they need to be, it's not low. You know, it's
100%.
pretty high. It's expensive, it's time consuming, and it will crush you before you ever get a product to market if you are doing things the right way.
Right.
That's a huge point. That's a key point right there. Is
Right.
if things were equal, you know, there's what we see a lot of is too is like and you guys can probably, I mean, are probably, you know, one of the ones that this hurts the most. It's like by doing things, you have your own manufacturing facility, you have to do things by the book. It's like, you know, in a ways, it's like almost at a disadvantage as opposed to some other people. And it's just like, you know, those are the conversations that, you know, Ben and Jacob and I have sometimes. It's like, if there was, you know, a set way you had to do it exactly, there would be a trickle down effect that, you know, that barrier of entry would now suddenly change where you couldn't just have this. And I guess that's just the everyday struggle.
Yeah. And it's like, kind of the way you're saying, like it's definitely more challenging having our own manufacturing facility, but like, and it was when I first started in this industry, it was one of those things where I would get shit from like people in my family who didn't understand it. And they're like, you know, that stuff's dangerous. You know, they don't even know what we sell. They hear dietary supplements and they think fat burners and drugs. So like for me, it was like constant struggle. Like I literally was like at a family dinner and I was talking to my cousin and I'm like, I can guarantee you that I've seen the FDA personally more times than Pfizer has this year.
Yeah.
Like, so if you think it's underregulated, like you have no idea. And the difference between us and Pfizer is that I can't hand the FDA an envelope and make them go away. Like there's a difference. Like there's no one in our industry that could pay off the FDA.
Right.
Well, I mean, maybe not fight them enough, but yeah. So, I mean, and that's what people don't think.
I think that I think that Canada has it really figured out in a lot of ways. In like Health Canada's regulations as opposed to ours. I think there's some areas where like registering new ingredients is a little bit odd, or I think there's like there's max dosages for some things, which I really don't agree with very much. But I think they have a lot of stuff figured out, including no proprietary blends. And this has been something that you've kind of helped my opinion on a few times, because I used to be staunch. You met me when I was at NutriBiown. I was staunch against proprietary blends. I thought they were all horrible, absolutely evil. Anyone who used them was like devil.
Is James watching?
I hope so. I'm drinking G-Crack for the record.
Nice.
And I think that you've helped me switch my thought process on that a little bit, you know, to, hey, maybe some of this is reasonable. If there was no stigma around it and the laws that are in America are right, like how much would you use proprietary blends? Because you've been a little bit for them at times.
It's weird because the last conversation I had about this, which was like 2 nights ago, like I was vehemently against it in terms of that argument. But again, I think like my big thing is I think it's more nuanced than like, do they suck? Are they a scam? Or there's a lot more nuance to it. So like Mark in that thread, I'm sure you read the thread, was correct. And saying that like, if anyone wanted to copy your brand, whether it's a blend or not, your product, whether it's a blend or not, like they could if they had enough money to do it. And again, it kind of brings us back to like what you said in the beginning, like just because you can do what another brand does doesn't mean you're going to deliver it the same way. So like anyone worth their weight in supplements is not going to just copy another brand and think that they're going to be as successful as them. Like it's just never going to happen. I can't take something like Ghost Legend and make that product and make it as successful as they have. It's just not possible. It's, you know, it's built on more than the formula it's built. And this is another reason why I think that marketing, branding, culture is a step above the actual product in this industry and in others. But like in terms of the prop blend thing, I think that there's business cases for both. I think that for pre-workouts specifically, I like hybrid. So like, I like having, you know, like what your keyboard warrior wants to see in a product, that they want to see, you know, 6 grams of citrulline. They want to see 3.2 beta alanine. They want to see all these numbers that they don't know why they're the clinical doses. They just know that they are the clinical doses. So, okay, give the consumer what they want in terms of those things to an extent. And then for the other things that are a little more nuanced, like you're not going to know the difference whether I have 300 milligrams of caffeine, 75 milligrams of hordenine, and 2.5 grams of yohimbine. Like you're not going to know the difference if I change that by a couple milligrams here or there. But like supplements are made with the ingredients to work synergistically. Like this is the only industry that I've ever seen where someone's like, you need the clinical dose of all these things at the exact same time, otherwise it doesn't work. Like that is not how things work. Like if you wanted to, like if you have a headache, you don't take the max dose of Advil, aspirin, whatever else you want, like Motrin. You don't take all of those things at the same time. You take whatever works for you. And sometimes most people don't know what works for them. So like, have I had a pre-workout that's a prop blend that's amazing? Yes. Have I had one that's a non-prop blend that's also amazing? Yeah. And I just feel like on one level, you can't really go out and say that like prop blends are better than this because it's a surprise and it's more fun for the consumer. Like you can't. Like it's always better when the consumer has a choice. Always. Hands down. Like if I was drunk one night and I couldn't find the light switch, getting to my bed might be fun, but like I don't want to do it every night. Like I don't want it to be a surprise every night. You know what I mean? So like I want to know where my bed is. Yeah. And it's the same thing. Like if I want to know where my bed is, I want to have the choice. So like that's why I believe in fully transparent formulas in that term. Like there's a consumer that wants to know every single thing they're putting in their body. And like maybe they're not educated on it. Maybe they think they know what they're talking about. They're probably not educated on it, but it's them using their money to buy it and they want something specific. So give it to them. So, and then like on the other end, like those same people can make their own decisions whether they want to try something that's non-prop. And maybe that's where there's a little bit of nuance where like brand A can have a prop blend with just their stimulants and their focus. And that's their secret sauce. Like this synergistic blend of our, whether it's, something that gives you energy, something that gives you focus, something that gives you like, I don't know, more like tingling feeling, whatever it might be. Like maybe that's your secret sauce and that's cool. That's fine. Like, how much can you underdose stimulants? Like, I don't really think you can. And if you do, like, you can feel that they're underdosed. A lot of times with like performance ingredients, like not for nothing, the 95% of the general public is not going to know the difference between 6 grams of citrulline and 4. It's just not going to happen. Like, unless you're completely shredded and you've done it and you've done this for 10 years and you know exactly what that feels like. And even at that point, like, you don't know. You might think you do. Yeah. And you might think that it's great that you're having this loaded 12 grams of citrulline as you're selling like someone's product. Like that's bullshit.
Yeah, you get a lot of people. I say that all the time. I'm like, if you can tell me the difference between 4 grams of citrulline and 6 grams of citrulline while you're working out, I was like, I'll give you a fucking $1 million.
Right.
Like,
yeah, you can.
And then going back to I've thrown the clinical dose thing out of the window a long time ago. I was like, how can we talk about clinical doses when these things? When was there ever been a study of 12 ingredients at the same time working together, especially when,
right?
You got citrulline in a formula, you got another blood flow ingredient. It's like, well, who says you have to have this and this and this? It's like, I don't know.
Well, that's kind of what I mean.
From. Yeah.
If you have multiple ingredients that are meant to do the same thing. So like, all right, so nitrosogene has this percent increase in nitric oxide levels at 1500 milligrams. That's cool. But have you tested that along with citrulline malate and glycerol and nitrates? Have you tested it along with those things? What's the result then? Because if you haven't, like, how many people do you know that are just taking nitrosogene raw?
Right.
Probably not many. So like, clinical doses is out the fucking window. At that point, clinical doses are marketing.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah. I gave up on that whole term. I just remember hearing it and I was like, this doesn't even make any sense. I was like, especially if you actually like read some studies, it's never on people that are, very rarely on people that are trained athletes or things like that. It's usually in some other kind of setting. And, the whole thing just turns into a big like pissing contest for kind of no reason. And like one thing that you said that I remember from the prop blend discussion that I really agree. I don't get involved with those conversations because they're pointless, but
good idea.
I'm like, whatever.
It's so hard not to.
I
know.
I don't think it is, because I think it's a total waste of time. I'm just like, whatever, because I think exactly what Greg said. If the customer, there's so many companies out there, and then this is something that like Ben from Morphogen says a lot. People criticize his formulas. He's like, look, this is what I want to do. If people want to buy it, then buy it. If you don't want to buy it, go buy something else. There's choice, customer choice. So someone said, I think it was Tim Gritzman said something about, he's like, I would rather buy a proprietary blend from NutraBio than a fully disclosed formula from, some of these brands that I don't know like anything about their backgrounds. It could be because there's this weird kind of thing where, we've seen some labels that we know they're not true. So it's like, it goes back to trying to shine lights on companies like Musclesport or whether it's NutraBio. Like it's what's cool about like what you guys do is people know I don't want to say the inner workings, you don't have to show them everything, but just building that culture in the community, kind of the whole vibe of it. It's like building that trust is important. You don't have to show them your lines running the part, or don't have to let the customers come in and watch the encapsulation sort of going on to build trust. So it's like, I think the companies that are doing that, you're kind of like, okay, I would trust buying a proprietary blend from these guys over, say a fully transparent, clinically dosed one.
Yeah.
God knows where.
And that's what matters, because like realistically, like if you think that prop blends are a scam, like, okay, so that means that company that's selling you something is underdosing products and willingly manipulating you into buying it. Okay, that's cool. So you think that the regulation on having to put specific doses on there is going to change the fact that they are purposely shady?
Right.
Because at the same level that they're underdosing ingredients, they can just lie on the label. Like there's no difference in terms of legality. Like no matter what, you are mislabeling. So that's what I don't understand. It's like, all right, so like all of a sudden, if I open this up, now you trust me? That's not how it works. Like that's not how it works in any other industry. I don't think that prop blend should be like the devil at all. I think that fully transparent labels might be a better appeal to the masses in terms of like bringing a little more trust to this industry. That's where I think me and Mark sit on the same side of the things, because I think it makes the industry better. I do. I mean, I'm cool with anything that makes the industry better. And not for nothing, like we sell our Rhino Black V2 for the same margin that we sell our Rhino Rampage. One's a prop blend, one's not. We're not making more money with the prop blend. It's a more economical formula, but we're not making more money on it. So that's the thing. Like people have these like very, very top level or like outside perspectives on how things work and how a certain companies, not even in this industry, just in all industries, are scamming the consumer. And if you really dug down into it, like it's hard. It's harder to scam someone than it is not to. I mean, obviously you could make SARMs that are 100% creatine and sell those on every website. And there's plenty of people scamming people that way, but that's a different story. I mean, like we're in Vitamin Shop. We've been on bodybuilding.com before. Like if there's anything wrong with our products, like 8 years going now, being relatively what I would consider like bigger, or at least like a mid-sized company, like someone would complain. So like, I think trust, reviews, word of mouth, I think that stuff, like that's what brings that loyalty. You know what I mean? Like look at our reviews, look at the flavor reviews, look at like the efficacy reviews, look at the people who have been with our company that have not left, that have been here for this long, the retailers that have stayed for 10, 15 or 12, 13 years now. Like, don't you think that if our stuff was trash or didn't work or was underdosed or didn't taste good, like you think these people might, I don't know, stop selling it or buying it or reviewing it? You know what I mean? Like it's those kind of things that like those intangibles that I think are more important than like regulation.
So, go ahead, Ben.
That was a really deep rabbit hole that I wasn't expecting that to go down. I loved it. My point was actually going to be going back like a half hour. You talked about people not understanding things that they don't really even need to know about. And one of the points that I've gotten from a few people is like, if you prop blend, a really good example is like the cholinase trademark from Glaxon. They have a trademarked blend of cholines, and something that people don't need to know, that they are not really outspoken on, but they're open about if you ask them, is that they have that pre-made in their facility. And they don't have to test that as rigorously because it's a prop blended blend, which saves the cost on the final product, which helps it be more economical for you to purchase.
Right.
It's still a good product, and it's just one ingredient. Technically, it's a trademarked ingredient they've created. But filing that under just another like detail that would be a good explanation on why they use a proprietary blend. But people don't need to know that. Like that's not going to enhance anyone's experience in this market anymore. And I think it's really ironic because like a lot of the arguments that I would use for prop blends is the same arguments that people with prop blends would use against therapeutic, fully disclosed labels. Like Bacuzzi's famous line of like, your transparent label could just be fake.
Right.
Like, and that's absolutely true. But like, part of the problem is that like a lot of these conversations we come into with like a negative pretense. Like when you buy a Porsche and they tell you that the 0 to 60 is 2.7 seconds, you're not like, bullshit, prove it. Like take me to the track right now. Exactly. Take me to the track right now, dude. Yeah. Show me the 0 to 60 is 2.7 seconds. Like you don't do that. But when for some reason when I say, hey, let's all go fully transparent, people are like, You can't trust
show me your
them, dude.
manufacturer, show me your lab test. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you just heard people saying things on a forum somewhere. Like, and that's kind of my other argument is like, this is when you go out to eat at a restaurant, like you don't ask for the recipe before you eat the food. Like, you're not like, take me back there. I want to see you make it or I'm not eating this. Like, that's what it's like. It's like, no, like, and it's not because that is because it's their secret sauce for our industry. Like, maybe it started that way. Like, you didn't want to copy formulas or whatever, but for our industry, it's almost like there are certain things that, and this sounds so shitty and it's so hard to say this without like sounding like you're trying to hide something, but like there are things that consumers don't need to know because we don't have the ability to explain in depth the level of knowledge that they would need to understand why you do certain things. So you just do it. It's like the government. Like, do you sit in backroom meetings before laws are made? No, someone does. And we trust those people enough to make those decisions. That's falling apart as we speak. So, but well, I mean, that's kind of.
I always hear like these small brands. They're like, I've perfected this stim blend, man. They have like 6 wholesale accounts. They're like under $1 million in sales, but they've perfected this stim blend, and they don't want Redcon or whoever to come in and copy it because it's transparent. Bro, not only they already have better formulators than you that understand this industry better, but also it costs under $1,000 to send your product out for testing. They'll have it in a second. And if they really did want your formula, if it really was that great, they'll spend that $1,000 to beat you at the end of the year anyway. Like 100%. It really offers zero protection for people.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is we're, in the past, we were always like sort of how we grew up, like you would only see the brands that were in the fitness magazines, right? You would see the ones, the Muscle Techs and stuff like that. And the cool thing about where we're at now is you have access to all these brands and you can get to know the people, you can watch podcasts and you can listen to this, and then you can make your choice. Like people have always sort of been like, Justin, what about this? And it's just like, man, that's your choice, right? But okay, if you want someone that shares their manufacturing or gives you a tour, NutriBio is over here. NutriBio or other brands. If you want this, like you can go here, but it's like, that's your choice. This is America. It's like, what the fuck are we talking about here? You don't demand that someone says, opens up their manufacturing facility to you and tells you everything. It's like, but there are some people that do. And if you want to know, then there you go. There's your brand, go use them. But it's like, to demand that kind of stuff is insane.
That's kind of what I wanted to touch on too, because that's a big portion of it. Like, again, this might sound shitty, but like, it's not my responsibility to pander to everybody. So like, if you are one of the people that wants to know where something's manufactured, or you want to know this, or like you only like this sort of supplement, like go buy it.
Go get it.
Like that, then our brand is not like, there's a huge value in saying no to people. And I think that's big. And it's like when someone says, oh, you're scamming consumers, you're buying it, bro. Like it's your responsibility as a consumer to read the label, research what you need to research, find the people you trust, give you advice, and make an informed decision before you put something in your body. Like no one's scamming you. You're just stupid. I know, and like that's just what it is. And I'm not saying that everyone is. And I think that there is a level of responsibility on the brands to deliver honesty and quality. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't think that like it's the Wild West and we should do whatever we want. And like, fuck them if they don't find out. Like, that's not what it is. It's just, I think people think that they're getting scammed a lot more than they probably are. And it's just one of those cultural things where this industry is very easy to kind of like pick on brands for it.
Yeah.
One of my biggest pet peeves is like these old guard kind of people, like old, like legacy brand owners or, executives or whatever, old brick and mortar owners that sit around and complain about brands or people doing things that isn't like the right way because it's not the traditional way. Like Justin mentioned, Muscle Tech, those big brands that used to have a lot of print ads because they could afford millions of dollars in print ads and stuff, and they sit here and complain that these D2C brands are popping up and they're not doing wholesale like they're supposed to. They're not they're not sending outside sales reps into stores like they're supposed to. Like somehow doing things in a more economic way is somehow wrong because they're able to create 1,000 times more demand from Facebook ads that are cheaper than your outside sales team. And it really bothers me that they think that there's some sort of real like right way to do it. I don't know why it irks me so much. Justin kind of
goes back to what Greg said earlier. It's like that's not going to change. So I mean, good luck fighting that sort of wave. Like it's wasting your time and energy on that.
Well, look, I mean, we'll put it this way: like when in history has the brand suffered because of evolution?
Mm-hmm.
So like, if you think about like this industry or whatever, like you'll see it even you're going to see over the next couple of years, and you're already seeing it with like major brands right now that are shifting to direct to consumer. Like, I'm not talking about brands like Redcon, because I mean, I don't know. I don't really remember when Redcon first started, but like, did they promise that they were going to be like for the brick and mortar guys? Was that like a thing? Did they promise that they were going to be this like retail exclusive brand?
I don't remember that.
Their exact promise was they were going to be as widely available as possible. I remember that.
Okay.
Aaron was very, very transparent in that he wanted to be everywhere, and he is.
Right. And I remember that. And that's kind of the thing. So like that's kind of one of those things where like retailers spend the time getting upset about something like that, where it's like, it was never Redcon's intention to solely support your store.
Yeah.
That's like your single store in a small town. Like, don't get me wrong, I love small business. I mean, our brand is still 95% small business, but like, and at the end of the day, like I strategize as hard as humanly possible to get as much exposure as we can without alienating our retailers. So like, when we run sales that puts the product in your cart at the same price, if not still higher than what our stores can make a good margin on. And we don't retarget, like I have never once in and I see every single ad that we create, and I know that it's rampant in that supplement group where they say that like they're targeting our locations. Not one time have I ever geo-targeted any of our stores. Not even close. You know what I will do? I'll retarget the audiences that obviously give us the most yield. And that's, if you're not doing that, like this, that's what I'm saying. But like, I've never set a geolocation once in my entire life. Like that's just not what we do. Like, I've never lost an account in Florida and said, you know, fuck that guy, Jacksonville, thousands of dollars. Like, that's not how it works. Like, maybe there are brands out there that do that, but like, if there's a brand good enough at digital marketing that could do that and literally replace those sales, then they don't fucking need the store anyway. And then at that point, what's the real point? So I think that's my thing, is just, you know, like you're never going to make everyone happy. And if you try to, you're going to end up making no one happy, because even if you think like, look, Ben, you brought it up before. It's like a perfect point where I said like, hey, what can brands do to make you happy? And in that one group, there were 5 billion different answers. So it's like, you're talking about a niche market, brick and mortar retailers that seems like the traditional retailer that, you know, that people build business models around. But like, even if you ask all of them what they want, every single answer is different. So like, you're never going to make everyone happy. So at the end of the day, do whatever the fuck you're good at and kind of like make it fun. And the people who want to buy it are going to buy it. And the people who don't want to buy it are going to talk shit on the internet. And at the end of the day, you either succeed or you fail. And it's kind of like your job and your responsibility to figure out how to succeed.
So when because being that your strategy is, like you said, 93% still brick and mortar, you said roughly, you know a lot of brands that it's maybe the opposite. So been talking about the pandemic a little bit and how things have been so crazy, and then you're being in New York and things like that. What do you think that strategy, how has that sort of like helped you, hurt you, sort of navigate sort of this whole crazy process, still being so, you know, ingrained in the brick and mortar retail? Just kind of curious, especially maybe in comparison to maybe like some other brands you've seen that have sort of opposite approaches.
I think that we're like, the reason that we're strong in brick and mortar is because we have such long-standing relationships, and kind of like using those long-standing relationships as business cases to build new relationships, where it's like, hey, listen, like, you know, you might not have tried our products, you might not like our products, but we've been selling to the same, you know, top 25, top 30 accounts who've been super successful with our products. Like, you know, it's like the Wolf of Wall Street, or like, don't judge me by my winners, judge me by losers, because I have so few. But then that's kind of what it is, though. It's like kind of the same thing with like me being at Musclesport for as long as I have been. Like, how often do you get a resume and you're like, oh, you were there 10 years, like you must be pretty decent at what you do. Right. And that's kind of what it is. So like, judge us for how long we've been supporting retailers as they are now. You know, like if we're good enough to kind of make it work with retailers for I'd say the last 4 years have been pivotal in terms of like how the business model is changing in terms of direct to consumer and digital marketing and just brick and mortar getting shitstorm after shitstorm of rocks thrown in their bike pedals. You know, like it's, and that's kind of what it is. Like, if we can support you through all these kind of things, like maybe we're doing something right. And that's that base of kind of like loyalty from our retailers has allowed us to expand. And like, if I was trying to rush to shift to digital, we would probably lose a ton of our retailers just because like I would just throw money at ads and I would do it like throw anything at the wall and see what sticks or whatever. But like having that base, I don't have much pressure to grow digitally right now. We're growing like hand over fist still in international and brick and mortar retail. Like even with what's going on now, we're growing rapidly online without doing much different. So like we're not throwing a ton more money at it. We're not alienating our retailers and we're still growing online. So it's given me a little bit of like a breather to figure out how to do it, but also keep our retailers happy. And I think that's the most important part. Like people think that you have to be one or the other. And like, I think First Form is a good example of how that's not fucking true, because First Form is probably triple as big as any direct consumer company that you can think of that you think is bigger, except maybe Redcon. Like Redcon might be the only one that's up there in terms of like how successful they really are. But like at that same mark, like you can ask brick and mortar retailers like who they love in their stores, and it's First Form. So like you can make both people happy. It's just about having like kind of like the consistency and the wherewithal to put certain systems in place and make them work. And that's just what it is. Like it's not easy. And if it were easy, there'd be a ton of people doing it, and this market would be even more saturated than it already is. But there is a way to do it right. There's a way to kind of do both. So
yeah, I think First Form, if you could personify those ridiculous messages you got in that group of you need to create demand, but you also need to support me. Also, all your influencers need to come to my store when I do events, and I have to get the best prices ever. It's First Form, but because how many retailers in America do they have? Like 50? Like
right, and that's right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I see this whole switch to digital very similar to like when Netflix and Blockbuster were battling it out, and a few different examples of that kind of stuff is that evolution where there's going to be people that want to hold on to the past and they think that that's right and it's going to win, and there's people living in the future that are adapting and overcoming, and there's got to be someone that is able to handle both. You know, you can still show love to TNS and Jacob, but you can also grow your D2C effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, we're like a shining example of how. And like I get a ton of feedback because I ask our reps all the time, like who's complaining about things or whatever it be. Like, and very rarely do we get people saying like, oh, you know, you guys are doing 40% off sales online. Like, all right, cool. We're doing a 40% off sale. So we have a $79 2-pound protein that we're doing 40% off on. So like, you know what I mean? Like, congratulations. And then you add shipping and you add just the time and the hassle to actually like place that order. Like if you're loyal to the store in your area, aren't you just going to go there and pick it up anyway?
Do stores really complain about that though? Like, cause I'm
very rarely. No, I mean, store in general. Store
yeah, no,
absolutely.
like brick and mortar, man. Cause I don't like, I'm oblivious to what other store owners do. I don't pay attention to them.
It's probably better off.
Like, no, I mean, do they like complain about brands giving discounts and stuff and all that? Like,
that's half of that group that you guys are in. Like that's half of what it is. It's just screenshots of different ads that other brands are doing.
Did you see this?
I'm sorry, you don't know how to market your product in your own store good enough.
Hey,
it's
Greg,
crazy because
Sorry, have you ever ran a discount and had someone send you an email that you have to apply that discount to their wholesale order?
No, because they wouldn't get the best response from me probably.
there's one account that
I'd be like, okay,
doesn't
so we're going to
this.
charge you $5 more because if you want to make more margin, then like sell it at that cart price, and we're going to charge you more.
Yeah.
So I like again, the thing is we have extremely good margins. Because we do manufacture ourselves and we have to pay for both businesses. So like manufacturing yourself doesn't mean, let's use round numbers. Like if something costs you $10 and you got to make 50% on it, you want to sell it for $20 or whatever, or $15 or 100% on it, whatever you want to do. You're not going to just cut out the manufacturing facility. So like we buy in quotes our product from our manufacturing facility because we have to cover the overhead over there. And obviously, if we were doing contract manufacturing, we wouldn't have that many employees or whatever. So like everyone thinks that manufacturing yourself, you just get like half the cost of goods. And that's not the case. I'm sure you know, because you have a brand, that like if you were to manufacture in-house, there are additional costs that would probably make up for whatever you're saving in terms of raw ingredients and materials. So like at some point, yes, you have way more buying power. But for me, it's like being vertically integrated, it doesn't help our margins as it helps our ability to like pivot when we need to. So like if we need something quickly, that's where being vertically integrated helps. Or if we need like a cool ingredient fast and we don't want to test it on a 10,000 bottle run and we want to test it on some quick like 1,000 bottle run, like that's where I think being vertically integrated helps a little bit more. Everyone thinks like, oh, you manufacture yourself, like I should be paying half of what Dymatize costs. No,
not at all.
No, that's it. Exactly.
I mean, all it takes is a general understanding of what raw materials cost and the cost to put them together to understand that whether you're vertically integrated or not, there's a cost to this shit. And so it's very minimal, the extra margin. So yeah, I agree.
And just taking into consideration, like if I'm getting my stuff manufactured elsewhere, I'm not paying those employees utilities. I'm not paying rent at their facility. I'm not paying their salaries. Like I am incurring those costs when I do it myself. So I like, you're trading opportunity for cost at that point. And then it's something that's, again, it's a nuanced level of understanding that like, if you don't have that understanding of what it's very easy to just say like, I should be paying half.
Mm-hmm.
So, and on the other end, I also like the people that like will quote out products in comments on Facebook. I just fucking laugh because you have no idea. And it's like you really have no idea. And I think one of the only people, maybe Ben, you probably do, and you probably do too, because you have a brand and actually probably all of you guys have like seen at least cost at some point. But like, if you're just a general consumer and you go on and you hit up some manufacturer and you ask for how much it's going to cost to make a pre-workout, you have no fucking idea what those cost. You don't know what my buying power is. You don't know what my relationship with that vendor is. You don't know if I'm on terms or not. Like there's so many things, like you could be paying $20 per kilo of this ingredient, but I can be paying $10. Mm-hmm. And you have no idea. You don't know why. You don't know if my relationship's better.
Well, even like not even just general consumers, even retailers don't understand it. Like especially not. Like I was on the phone with another retailer today. I have a lot of respect for the guy, and he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna try to do what you do. We're gonna make a brand like you and make a product." And I'm like, "Okay, so like if you need references, let me help." He's like, "Oh no, I got it." It's not that bad. I'm like, "Okay,
yeah,
cool."
Good luck.
Just because you sell to the consumer, Oh no, go ahead.
No, there's just so much that goes into it that you just wouldn't understand unless you've been doing it and gone through the pitfalls that brand owners have gone through and scaled. I think that's what it is. Like anyone can start a brand, but like, can you scale it? Can you make it successful? Can you introduce new SKUs? Because what happens, man? I mean, you make a pre-workout, everyone loves it, and you sell it to a bunch of stores. Mm-hmm. The next thing that happens is those retailers are like, "Hey, dude, when are you getting the next flavor in?"
Yep.
Oh, well, I mean, to get 1,000 bottles in your store, I give you 90-day terms. So like, I have to wait till I get paid, and it's just things that people don't think about when they start a brand, and they just, there's a lot that's missed. And that's why a lot of people are in it very, very short term. And when it fails, and I see this a lot with store owners because we do some contract manufacturing work and we've gotten some orders and then they just go away. And then I look to see like, maybe they went through with a different manufacturer. Nope. They just stopped their brand, and that's someone with,
sorry,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love these sobering moments of information with Greg. It's like, everyone's like complaining and Greg like comes out like, "Hey, did you possibly consider this?" Like when C4 Dynasty came out and everyone's like, "This is fucking overpriced. This is ridiculous." And Greg came out with like the prices of all the products. He's like, "Listen, I don't really know what the buying power of Cycor is, but if you put 35 grams of actives in the scoop, it's probably going to cost similar, and you have to make money off of it. So it's $70, Like,
well, that's the thing. People don't understand how margin works either. So it's like, all right, like maybe this costs you $30 to make it. Okay, so then you need to sell it to me for 45, so you can make 15. No, I have to sell it to a store first, and then I have to pay my reps commission, and then I have to pay all my overhead, and then that store has to sell it to you, so it's upcharged twice. And then maybe that store actually sub-distributed to another store, so it's even more upcharged. So like, there's levels that people don't know about. And like, that's part of the reason, which kind of brings it full circle, where it's like, you don't need all the information because you wouldn't know what to do with it. Yep. You know what I mean? And like, you're never going to get all of the information. And that's just what it is. Like, you might have all of my cost of goods, but you don't have my overhead. You don't know how much I'm paying my reps. You don't know how much I'm paying, you know, all the rest of the salaries. You don't know how much my utilities are. Like, we're in New York, man. I'm probably paying more for warehouse space than most people are paying for retail space.
Yep.
It's wild, you know, so like, and those are things that need to be taken into consideration. And the reason that information is not given to consumers is because it's part of the brand's responsibility to handle that in an intelligent way and then be successful anyway.
And Nutri, we used to sell 15-pound tubs of protein in a mass gainer. We actually sold 50-pound bags of protein that you could buy. And we discontinued them because I think it was like after like 10 years of selling it, we were like, holy fuck, we are losing on shipping here. Like, there's no way we could charge enough reasonably for people to purchase this. And people were livid with us. They were like, you manufacture yourself, you can do this. Like, I've been buying it for years. And we're like, we made a mistake. We can't afford this. There's no way you could spend enough on this shipping that we could send you 15 pounds of protein and it'd be reasonable. And people don't even think about that. People don't even consider these kinds of things.
Yeah, it's like how many people do you talk to? I don't know. I mean, it's like every week, maybe daily, where people are like, hey, I know how to make a cool pre-workout. So I got this quote from this manufacturer, you know, and it cost me X amount of money. And it's like, well, you don't realize the costs that go into it, the extra costs, until it's too late. And then you already have the brain going. And I think like one thing that Greg said earlier that was really important, I say this so many times that it's like exhausting at this point, but it's like so many people go into it where they're like, okay, I've got this kick-ass formula. I made the product and now let me figure out what to do with it. Where like you were talking about earlier, you know, sometimes I've got the creative sort of done, the formula, and we'll sort of fit the formula. Like you kind of have the system down pat to, you know, to a certain point, but it's like fitting the formula in. Maybe people put formula first and then try to fit everything else into it. And that's what I see a lot of smaller brands and people getting started that aren't aware of how the industry sort of works and how all these costs incur. They want to fit that. They think they just have the coolest formula, and that if they make it, everything will magically sort of fall into place. And it's just like, that's just not reality. And I think that's one reason too why you see so many small brands that have that. It's just the same story over and over and over again. I hear it every day. It's like trying to fit that formula into, you know, rather than maybe considering those points. I think like a lot of people forget too, maybe they get into it and they go, well, I'm going to see how it goes, kind of thing. Like that's the strategy. It's like
you might as well just save your money then and spend it elsewhere. So like kind of on your point with that, it's, you know, like when like your parents tell you like, I can't wait till you have kids and you know, you'll see, or like I told you so kind of thing. That's like, I've had that conversation with retailers where a retailer would be like, I need this, otherwise I'm not carrying your brand. And I'm like, you know, like if you had your own brand, you'd understand. And then I've had some of them start a brand and months later they're in my DMs and they're like, dude, you're like, what's your key? Cause I did sales for a while. I handled like in 2018, I was handling like 12 to 15% of our sales just for fun. I loved it. I just got into sales and I'm like, I'm pretty good at it. I think it's a lot of fun. I just did it. And then marketing kind of got way too time consuming.
I wish you handled me, man. We'd have a lot better relationship.
Oh shit. Well, we could talk about that after this podcast. Anyways, I still handle a couple people.
We sure can.
Yeah, we definitely could. I'm pretty responsive with it, and now I handle way less clients. So, but like I've had those same retailers hit me up later when they have their own brand and they're like, hey man, like how'd you get into stores when you first started? Like everyone wants a sample. Everyone wants a free fill. You know, everyone wants this. I'm like, I can't invest in that right away. And I'm like, I fucking told you so.
I told you.
Like, see what I mean? Like this is, you know, this six to 8 months ago, you were telling me how easy it was to make a brand or whatever. But like now you have to support, like making a product is like 10% of the battle. Even the branding is like 10% of the battle. Like, then what do you do? Like, what's your business model? How do you pay the bills? Mm-hmm. How do you manage cash flow? How do you, like, there's so much that goes into it that is so not seen from the outside that like, that's why when people say like the bar to entry into the industry is low, relax. It's not low. It's actually high. It's just, you can do something once and then it's probably going to go away if you don't do it right, or you don't think it through. And that's like what you said, like, can you relax? I'm doing something. Okay. Hi.
Celebrity.
So yeah. So like, and that's kind of what you said, where like, you know, they look at the formula and they just think like, all right, I got the formula done. Like the rest will just take care of itself. And you really have to think the process through from the beginning. Like, how are you going to market? How are you going to support your retailers? You know, how are you going to pay for your next run? Because you're not going to be able to put profit in your pocket until a long time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, what they look at the most successful franchises in history. I think McDonald's is probably the most successful. Like, I think someone did the statistics once, and like, you are 99% guaranteed to make money, but not until 5 years. So like, how do you float running a business for 5 years without seeing a dime of profit? So you have to think that through. That's why the people who own McDonald's franchises are usually independently wealthy before that. And it's just another stream of income. Like, no one like me, well, I don't know what it costs. Maybe it costs like $1 million liquid to start a McDonald's franchise. If I hit the lottery and had $1 million, I wouldn't be able to start one. Because like, what would I do for the 4 years that I'm not making money? Yeah. So, and then people don't like think about that. And that's why it's actually hard to start a business. It's hard to start a side business. Like, I haven't seen a dime from Black Sales. We make money. There's not been one bank account deposit. I'm negative. I'm net negative. And I will be probably for a little while. And like, if you aren't aware that that's how it's going to be, you're going to fail. And if you don't have a plan to turn that around.
Yeah, I know people ask me all the time. They're like, well, you know so much about ingredients. Why don't you have a brand? I'm like, I just smile. I'm like, because
I'm not stressed. Yeah, exactly.
Fucking insane is why. Like,
yeah.
Well, first of all, also because Justin, you and I would make like the last thing that people think we would.
Right. I was like, you think I'm making a $18 pre-workout? You're out of your fucking mind. There's no way.
Yeah, yeah, man.
That's actually like why I can appreciate what Justin does with his consulting, because like, Justin, you deal with people that come in like with a lot of passion that have no clue that they're not going to make it yet. You know,
right.
Yeah, and I'm not saying your consulting isn't effective, but like you know that like the majority of these people coming in, they're like, man, I made this $20 pre-workout. It's the best thing. Everyone's gonna love it. And you're like, God, I'm really sorry. There's this guy named Greg, and he's gonna bury you. Like, you know, like, I'm really sorry to tell you, like, your $20 pre-workout, which like, even if we get everything worked out with the manufacturer, we might bring it down to $18. It's still gonna get buried. It's not getting shelf space. No one cares.
Yeah, you really just a lot of people make the formulas, going back to my point earlier, and then it's like too late. You know, you really try to get people before they get too far into the process, because sometimes it's like, man, you really hamstring yourself, you know, to certain things when you make products a certain way, and they're like, oh, I want to get into retail. I'm like, you can't. Like,
it'll never happen.
You actually cannot get into retail. So let's get that off the table.
Especially now, because it's getting so hard as a retailer to kind of like stay afloat if you're not doing anything to like actively combat that. So like right now is probably the worst. Like, if someone came in and started a product, like they wanted their first brand, their first pre-workout to be like Rhino Black or like Devastate or like Pre-Gym or like the Christian Guzman version of Ghost, like you don't know what that costs. Like, you might be able to create that for like one run or whatever, but first of all, now you have to, and I don't want to throw like numbers out because I'm sure consumers like hear this or whatever, but like, now you have to get a store to pay a certain amount of money for your pre-workout, and they're going to laugh you off the phone, because they're like, at the end of the day, it becomes like when you're struggling, like, you're like, think about drowning. Like, if you're drowning, you're reaching for anything that's going to keep you afloat. It's going to be a piece of plywood. It's going to be the nearest boat. It's going to be whatever. So like, if you're drowning as a retailer, what are you going to reach for? You're going to reach for the easiest thing that you could sell that's going to make you the most amount of money so you can pay your bills, right? So like, that is, and as shitty as it sounds, bro, that's exactly what it is. You're going to sell DMA pre-workouts. You're going to sell SARMs. You're going to sell pro hormones. You're going to do whatever it takes, because if you buy a bottle of, and I can talk about SARMs because they're not my competitor and I don't really care. You could buy a bottle of Ostrine for $20 and flip it for 80, and that's going to pay your bills. So at the end of the day, like, you might make the best pre-workout ever, but like, this is not the climate where you're going to get a store to take a chance on you. Yep. And especially not for what's considered like a luxury item. It's just not going to happen. So like, get creative or fucking die.
Yeah, I mean, what do you have to offer those stores? Like, you as a store and as a brick and mortar retailer who has their own brand, and you're trying to create a brand within that store, what do you have to offer?
Right, exactly.
I mean, your formula is not special. I hate to say it,
right?
But like,
I was gonna say, like, what Greg, you were in sales too, and talking about, like, you're not gonna, like, Jacob doesn't give a shit like about your citrulline dose. It's like, how am I gonna sell this in my store is his problem.
Exactly.
So the problem you're trying to solve for the customer is totally different than the problem you're trying to solve for the retailer. Everyone has their own problems, and you're trying to solve them all at the same time. So nobody gives a shit about the citrulline dose, down the road. It's like
right, and that's. I mean, I got to be honest. I don't know how it is with you, Jake, but like if you, what I know from the couple of years that I did selling and dealing with retailers now, and I've been dealing with retailers even before I was selling, whether it was to support them in terms of marketing, sending them ads or whatever. But like, I see sales reps all the time in other industries, and I'm like, dude, I wish I could hire you. Like, you're such a good sales rep. And the first thing they say is like, I don't know anything about supplements. And I want to be like, it doesn't matter.
You don't have to. You don't have to.
I don't like. I can guarantee you that maybe 5% of my time was talking about ingredients, and that 5% was at such a thin top layer of what they do, because at the end of the day, like, you're a business. So selling into a store, like, yes, you need to educate the consumer. And if you go to our website right now, like, you can find, we probably have more information on our site than almost any other website that there is. So like, we do a breakdown of every single ingredient that's in the product, and then we link to studies on those ingredients, and then we do FAQs on those ingredients. So like, there's an infinite amount of knowledge that our consumers can go and find out. There's questions that can be asked that we'll answer, whether it's they can read it themselves or they'll literally hit us up about it. But like, a store wants to know, do people want it? Does it taste good? Does it look cool on my shelf? What are you going to do to help me sell it? And if you can't hit those 4 boxes with some sort of like actionable answer, you're done. Right. Like, you're not going to sell. You might get a couple. There's sales reps that I know in this industry that are friends with people. And I'm friends with a lot of my accounts, but like, you're only going to get so far at doing that. And like, you need to have a good relationship, and you need to be friends with your accounts and whatever. But at the end of the day, like, you also need to provide a product that sells, because that is the start of the relationship and it'll be the end of the relationship. So, and like, there's people in this industry that can just start a brand, and like, they have enough of a reputation where people will trust in them. And I think that's a lot of what happened with Redcon. I remember listening to a video about, I don't know if it was maybe Josh Shaw was there doing one of his things with them or whatever, but I remember Aaron talking about how before he started Redcon, he actually got like almost $500,000 in purchase orders before he ever had a product, and it helped fund the first run. Like, there's a level of loyalty, but that loyalty is built off of something. It's built off of like, that, like, why is Ghost successful? Is it successful because it's like cool branding and like the people they got behind it? I think somewhat. Or is it successful that Dan has fucking 1 billion years industry experience and Ryan has 1 billion years on like the consumer side experience? Like, is that why? Because like, those people, like Dan did amazing things at Cellucor, and he knows the industry, you know what I mean? And like, Ryan dealt with enough brands that he knew enough of the industry, and they made it work. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't come from nowhere and start something, even if I had all the same ingredients, all the same, like I had the same recipe for success. I wouldn't be able to execute on that, because relationships are a huge part of it, but they're not the only part of it. So like, you have to have some sort of business case that'll actually sell your product.
Right. You kind of came full circle on something I wanted to say like 20 minutes ago, but you were awesome at just doing your thing when you talk. Like, even if you had that incredible, Justin's not a fan of formula, but like the CGV3, like, even if you had that full formula, you're not going to buy it. I always have to throw that in. You're not going to buy it anywhere near the cost that Armada is selling it to Dan for, because you're not also buying at the same scale that he's at, and you can't turn it around at the same rate that he can. There's not just one reason that Ghost is killing it. There's like a perfect storm over there. And some of it is all of the things that you said, that those all add up. And even if you had the incredible scientific forethought to formulate something incredible, you're not going to buy it for the cost. You're not going to sell it at the rate. You're not going to market it at the way. You don't have the friends that Ghost has in any of those ways. You can't compare it.
Yeah, I didn't like it, but I paid out of pocket with my own money for it. So
yeah.
You paid for something?
So I still bought it. Yeah.
What's that like?
On you.
Crazy talk.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point too, because it's like people don't see that, and like, I think one of the biggest things in this industry is like, if you talk about like C4, like, everyone thinks they know what it costs. Like, they think, oh, C4 is like, just talking about C4 original. C4 is a $3 pre-workout. So then, like, in their head, like, every single pre-workout in the industry that's not like a crazy dosed pre-workout is a $3 or $4 pre-workout. Right. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Like, we have amazing pricing and amazing buying power, because we deal with vendors the correct way in these things. But like, there's some intangibles that you don't even understand. Like, there's some things we could buy 1 million grams of caffeine, or we could buy 10 grams of caffeine, and it wouldn't matter the disparity of price, because like the things that say constant are like our bottles, our scoop, our label, like those are fixed costs. And then like your buying power on all the other stuff, like, yes, you can fluctuate or whatever, but like I couldn't make a $3 pre-workout if I tried, because our packaging is more than $3. So it's like you can never compare to the level of what someone else is doing, because you don't know enough about what they are doing, which is kind of full circle on like trying to copy another brand's success. You can't, because you don't know the things that are under the table at that brand. Like you don't know why they're getting such a good price. Like you think that you can, like, at the end of the day, like what I see that Redcon does is all the same shit that a consumer sees. You know what I mean? So like, I don't see the full picture at Redcon. I can probably figure out enough of it because of my history in this industry, but most people can't. And then like, you think that you can replicate success from another brand, and you're setting yourself up, like, again, just Venmo me that money that you're going to invest in that brand, and I'll go buy fun things for my dog, because like you're throwing it away anyway.
Yeah, we've seen some, we've commented about this. You see some bigger brands start to, you can tell they kind of get desperate. They're trying to do, and then they start to emulate maybe like Redcon, and you're just like,
yeah,
that's not going to, I mean, you just know that that's not going to go well. It's like the companies that sort of have, it goes back to everything we've been kind of talking about. It goes back to our point about Blackstone earlier. You have this experience behind it, sort of that you got started. So Redcon had a lot, they hit the ground running, but there was all this experience and all these, ways that they kind of were ahead of the game. So now you're going to try to play catch up when you did not have that, and now you're going to try to beat them at their own game. It's like, holy shit! Like, okay,
it's not possible.
Good luck.
Yeah, the really like funny thing is the whole. Sorry.
No, keep going.
I was going to say the really funny variable at the end, which Justin, I know you've seen this, is people bring you their cost for their pre-workout, and you're like, you are paying this for this? And it's either like you're paying way too much for something that's absolute shit, or you think that you're getting a really incredible price on a pre-workout that there's no way they're making this at this price. Like they're straight up lying to you. It's not in the product. There are so many variables. You couldn't recreate someone else's success, even if you had almost all the same things.
No, it's not possible. You could work for a company for 10 years and probably still not replicate what they do. And it's like I've had that, because I do private label sales also. So like I handle some accounts on our manufacturing side where when we make products too. And it's like, it's the same story every time. Like, all right, here's your quote. Oh, there's no way, dude. There's no way. Like, I'm getting this for, $7 elsewhere. I'm like, nope, you're getting something for $7 elsewhere. Like, you're not getting this though. And like, I'm just like, I'm like, we have lower margins than most manufacturers do. And I'm like, I can promise you that you are not getting this. So, and it's, again, that's just what it is. It's like, people are kind of stuck to whatever their reality is in terms of just like the small amount that they know. That's why I think, Jake, what you said, you're like, I don't watch what other brands do. I don't watch what other store owners do. Like, I can tell you from experience that I've done way more in this industry when I've separated myself out. Like when I first started this industry, obviously, like, you have that whole like imposter syndrome where you're like, I don't know, like, do I even know what the fuck I'm doing? I've been here for this long. Like, am I just faking it? And I'm really like good at faking it. So like, I'll look at what every other brand does. I'll look at other things. I'll look at how they post and how they interact with their athletes, or what cool things they're doing on their website or in their messaging or whatever. But then like, when you step away from that and you just like open the door to that bubble and start looking at that bubble as an outsider, you are so much more successful.
Right.
And I think
Oh, well, I was going to say, I think that's in any stage of infancy in entrepreneurship, is like you have no like groundwork laid. So you look to what the rest of what you're wanting to do is doing. But once you build that foundation as to what you are or what you want to be, you can step outside of the bubble, as you're saying. Because, I've never seen us as like comparable to any other brick and mortar retail store. I just don't view us as that. We might technically be. I mean, we generate money the same way, but the moment you separate yourself and provide a different value altogether, that's when you're enlightened, so to speak.
That's when you actually have value, is when it's not like what someone else can just offer, or something replicated off of what someone else decided that they thought was cool, or what it might be. And that's kind of where it is.
Yeah, and that's what baffles me when, like, and not just you, but I talk to other brands and stuff, and they'll complain about retailers that, are complaining about margin and like benefits and like, what are you going to do for me? I'm like, man, like I just want a good relationship with you guys and knowing that you give me a quality product. And if we are on the same page, we can push the hell out of your product. You know, like it's not about those minute details so much. It is to a certain extent, but not as much as a lot of these people complain about.
Right. Yeah. And that's, again, like circling back to that group where on that one specific post where someone's like, oh, I would like to see like, you know, your ad audiences and things like that. Like if I gave you all the information of every single thing I do, you wouldn't even know what to do with it.
Right.
So it wouldn't matter. And it's one of those things where like, just worry about what you're good at. I'll worry about what I'm good at. And like both of us will hopefully be successful by doing that. And that's kind of, I think that's just what it is. And once you come to that realization, like I think why I was so good at sales, and I encourage other brands to start doing this with sales reps, and it's hard, but like, and the only reason it worked for me is because I was on salary doing my real job, which was marketing and design. So, but like I wasn't getting paid for sales. So like if I failed at it, it didn't take money away from my pocket. So because of that, I wasn't really afraid of hearing no. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't worried about like paying my rent next month if I didn't get a sale. So it allowed me to actually like take a step back and take a breath and think about like, what does this retailer want? You know, like what does this retailer not only want from the brand, but like, what is this? I have retailers that act vastly different. Like some of them don't ever want me to call them, and I never do. Some of my best retailers, we just communicate via text message. Like that's it. And then I have some retailers that like, if I text them, they immediately call me and they think it's like disrespectful if I text them or whatever. So like you have to figure out like what, and I feel like a lot of times, like if you're under so much pressure to perform and deliver like immediately, you don't even get the chance to lay that groundwork of what you should really be doing. And I think that's why I'm saying like, if a brand can afford to do it or whatever, like take someone in your accounting department and like in their free time, like teach them to be a sales rep. I guarantee they end up getting better than your reps because they're not pressured to hit a goal every single day or month or week or whatever it might be. So
I had that experience too, which is really cool. Like I was able to handle key accounts as someone that was just growing in the company. And my biggest compliment was like Sups called me. You know, Sups, I would get like very large POs like every 3 months. And they told me at one point, they were like, you're our favorite rep because you never call us and ask for an invoice. Like we just have a really good.
I think that's why I did so good.
Yeah, because you're not like, oh, it's the end of the month, I got to see if I can squeeze anything out of this. You're like, hey, I noticed this is out of stock. I've got a really good deal on it, or I've got this new flavor. Like, you know, how, you know, let's talk about it. Like, you're not calling because you need to. You're calling because it's a good relationship. And you support them, and they support you.
Yeah, and that's what it is. Like and it sounds weird, but like I don't know if I've ever even called someone and asked them if they needed an order. You know what I mean? Like I'll check in on people, and most of my like relationships with my accounts, I have a terrible memory, but for some reason, like with my accounts, I just remembered everything. So like I'll see, like, let's say Ben, you're like one of my accounts or whatever, you'll post something about your dog. I'll immediately hit you up and be hey dude, have you ever tried this or whatever for your dog? And then like that conversation, normally, like I won't even talk about Musclesport or the brands or anything. Be like, oh, by the way, dude, I got to place an order Friday. Cool, man. Call me Friday. Yep. You know, like, and I think that's more important because like, if it's strictly like people, especially people my age, like, you know, when you're being sold to, like, that's why I fucking hate buying cars. You know what I mean? Like I hate walking into a car dealership because the dude wants to be your best friend. And like, it's this mutual understanding that it's bullshit. So like, if it's not bullshit, like that's when it becomes successful. You know what I mean? Like where I can hit you up about anything and have no hidden agenda to sell you something. And then we can actually talk. Like I've had plenty of people say like, hey man, you know, should I pick this product up? You know what? How do you do with this category? Not so well. No, man. I don't think you should. Like most people want to get that sale, but the last thing I want to do, I don't want to put something on your shelf that doesn't move. That's worse than not picking it up in the first place because then it just sits there and it ends up on a clearance rack. And then like, I'm big, I guess, because of like the whole marketing portion of it. Like I think people buy brands, not products anymore. There's obviously exceptions, but I think it's swinging that way, like exponentially year over year, where like you're seeing the most successful brands now, like they don't even have product names, you know, like some of them do, where it's just like brand brand pump, brand BCA, whatever. Like I think that's more important because like at that point, if you can strengthen your brand more than like your products, you can sell whatever you want. And it's like you'll see like urban luxury brands that are probably the best proponent of this, where like Supreme, like you guys know, like the little urban streetwear brand Supreme, like they sold a brick for $2,500. It's literally a brick with their logo on it. And like, it's just to prove a point, like we could put our name on fucking anything and people will buy it. And I think even like people like Dan and Ryan at Ghost will appreciate that because they're into sneaker culture, and it's the same thing. Like the brand and like the exclusivity is what sells things.
Well,
like how many people really want to walk around with off-whites?
Yep. One thing that I think you and I have maybe even talked about it in the past a little bit, but one thing I've noticed with you, and one thing that we talk to people that are starting their brands, small brands or people get started up and they look at other supplement companies, right? And they want to emulate them, like exactly like what this conversation we're having. But there's a lot of people, and I think the ones that are ahead of the game look outside the supplement space. They look at, like I said, whether it's these lifestyle brands that are clothing or whatever it is that fits their sort of target market, that you see how they use visuals and how they use their marketing to sort of attract to their target market. Or even if like we have these conversations sometimes about people that want to be on Amazon. And I'm like, go look at, we had this conversation with somebody the other day. I was like, go look at something you don't know about on Amazon. Go look at cleaning supplies and see how a brand advertises or describes their product on Amazon, because that's going to be the person that finds your product on Amazon. So I think one thing that's really cool about like what you do is, it seems like you take inspiration, not so much from the supplement space, but you look outside and the people that sort of fit in with that sort of target market that you're going after.
Yeah. And if you look at some of the biggest brands, like obviously there are exceptions, but if you look at some of the biggest brands, like even if you look at Oreo or Taco Bell or Wendy's or whatever, like you'll see how they market. Like it's almost not really product specific anymore. It's more like cultural specific. So like you'll see some of these major brands, like do you, any of you guys use Twitter? I know a lot of people don't use Twitter anymore unless it's for like news, but if you use Twitter, right. So, but if you use Twitter, like, that like Wendy's literally has a reputation for just like roasting other brands on Twitter, and it's become their personality. And like, that's not product marketing. Right. That's just like people that repost that stuff, they might not even care about a burger, but it's hilarious and it gets their brand out there. And I think that that's important, and it's a strong way to do things, because if you're constantly trying to compare your product to other people or market, like whatever the product is, like you're not building loyalty. And you're selling something that's going to phase out, whether it's our protein, our pre-workout, or whatever. Like every single product has a life cycle. I don't know when something like Gold Standard's life cycle is going to end. Maybe they found the fountain of youth, but every product has a life cycle. And if you don't evolve that, then you're going to eventually die. And like that goes to an extent, like even if you're talking about Gold Standard, like they might be able to keep Gold Standard alive because they're expanding in the way they distribute the product, not changing the product itself. That's fine. But there is a finite line for that. Like that does end. Like you can't sell everywhere. So, and once you do sell everywhere, then the appeal goes away really quick. So, like what I mean by that is kind of like in terms of get people to believe in your brand and like the people behind it. That's why I think right now, probably the most successful thing that a brand can do is be like the owner influencer strategy. So like, even if you're not an influencer, like bring people into it. Like Ghost does a really good job of doing it. Some of these smaller brands are doing a really good job of doing it. Like getting that trust out to like a different level where like the consumer will understand the owners that are behind it. Because not for nothing, like why do friends support businesses? Because they're your friends. I had so many people buy our beard oil. They don't even know like what's in it or why it makes it better. They just supported me. So if you could do the same thing, but to the masses, like how is that not going to be successful? Like you get someone to like you and they know that you're formulating a brand or you're sitting and designing something, they're just going to want to support it. And then you know what the byproduct of that is? They get a good product and they like it. And now it's both. Now it's like, fuck, they're cool and their stuff is awesome. And that's like, that's the secret sauce, like 100%.
Yeah. And going back to like what you said about the car salesman sort of analogy is, people are just so used to being bullshit. You literally go into a scenario knowing that you're going to be lied to. Like that's how you feel. So it's like, well, if all these products are somewhat the same, why wouldn't I just go buy it from one of my friends? A person that I trust. And we talk about bias and stuff all the time. And Ben said it yesterday, and I agree with him. I was like, I'll never say I'm unbiased. That's bullshit. That's a fucking lie. It's like I'm biased towards people that they're good people making cool products that tell us more about their thought process behind it. So, I mean, and that's what we see customers gravitate right towards that. I mean, it's
and
not a
this
bad
isn't
thing.
a kindergarten class. Like bias is not a bad thing. Like this isn't
Right.
like, oh, you know, you're the favorite student. That's not what this is. Like you're putting things in your body that
Right.
other people are making. So if you don't trust the people that are doing it, how could you trust the product?
Right.
So, and
that's
important.
One company that Justin and I have been getting a lot of questions about, and Justin had a good point, and I kind of applied this to it, is Hostile, Fuad Abiyad's brand.
Okay.
And so Fuad's wife actually was pretty large at Muscle Tech and then at Cage Muscle. Like she knows her way around supplements, and he formulated these himself. But I mean, Justin made a good point. It's very similar to like a lot of the other brands that are full scoop, 28 gram pre-workout type stuff. It's impressive, but it's really nothing all that special or different. And we've been pretty transparent about the fact, like, hey, like, if this came around when like Nutri was doing their pre-workout, Gage Muscle, Gym, that would have been really cool. Right now, it's not like all that crazy, but
right.
Fuad Abiyad has like 600,000 followers, and he's offering a product that like now those people who would have originally purchased, First Form or whatever, they can support him. They can buy something from him, even if it's not really him. It's him and a couple other partners. They feel like they're supporting someone that they know, and that's really important for them. It's important for him to offer that. I mean, is he profiting off of it? Is he biased? Yeah, but hey, he's making a product, and you're buying it from him. Like you said, like, hey, you fell for it, you bought it, you wanted to support it. So, I get that bias thing a lot. Someone actually asked me yesterday why I'm so, if I feel like I'm biased towards Ghost and Nutri because I know them, which I thought was really funny because I'm just friends with Dan. I think he's a good person. Like I support him because I just think that he does good things. And I was actually fired from Nutri, so I don't know why people think that I'm biased towards them, which I always think is pretty funny. But if there's good people, like, fuck yeah, I'm biased towards good people. I really don't care if you don't like that.
Yeah, no, and I don't. But the thing is, it's such a weird dynamic that people think that that's a problem.
Yeah.
When it's not a problem. I mean, it's at the end of the, like you said that, for him specifically, he has 600,000 followers. Like, is he biased towards his own brand? Like, fucking obviously.
Be, right?
You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to create it, like, why would you not be biased towards it? You know what I mean? Like when someone says like, oh, like, do you like your designs over someone else? Yeah, like I did it. You know what I mean? Like if I don't like them, what am I doing? So I think it's just this weird, like, it's like level playing field derangement. Like everyone thinks that like even if you work with someone or like work for somebody or you're friends with them, that like you should support them the same level you support strangers, and that's bullshit. Nothing in life works that way. Like you think politics works that way, or big tech companies, or schools, or pretty much any job. Like they say like it's who you know, like it's who you know. But the reason you know those people is because you're good at relationships. And if you're good at relationships, you're probably pretty good at like putting something else together.
Yeah, I like that. You probably know someone who will be able to put it together with you even better as well.
Right, exactly. And that's, team's important.
I don't know about you guys, but
I was going to say it's like, so we're like 2 hours into it. Speaking of bias, I was going to say Eve is like our mascot, for our normal like supplement thing. But if you follow Greg, his Instagram, it's a lot about his dog. And I wasn't going to like let this podcast end without talking about your dog, because it's obviously a big part of your life, and that's really cool. I think we all kind of have that. And we've seen Nova, right, sort of walk around a little bit, and I didn't know if you wanted to just give her a little shout out. We see her a lot on there, and she's pretty awesome. So
come here. She's playing with a ball right now in the back, so you can see that she has severe ADD with toys. So I'm sure you follow me, and I think most of the people on this podcast can agree with me, especially you, Ben. Like, I'm very biased towards pit bulls. I have 3 rescues. 2 are with my ex, and she's my third. I've only had rescues. We had a family dog, obviously, when I was, living with my parents, but she's the best, dude. I mean, she's one of those things like I've had 2 other dogs that some of them were like nightmares to take care of. I got super lucky. This dog, we got her when we first moved into this place, and like never mess anything up. My girlfriend has become a plant addict as of late, so I have 14 plants in here, and I'm gonna have to like buy a machete to get into my apartment at some time soon if she keeps this up. But like this dog hasn't messed with one of the. Oh yeah,
under
it's
the
nuts.
couch.
But
Holy shit.
yeah, there's. Oh yeah, you see her back there? Like this. No, but they're staring at you and laughing at you. So
she's like, whatever.
Yeah, she doesn't care. She'll just do that. She's like, Dad, can you stop, dude? Like you work all day. But
Greg's actually the only reason I'm allowed to have Eve here. Like Greg, I don't know if you remember that last year helped me out getting Eve is my emotional support animal.
Oh yeah, so is she.
Totally legit, totally like doctor helped me out, everything. I have a slip for it. It's amazing.
I'm the TRT doctor. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Dude, I was waiting for that. That's awesome. No, you're an ESA, right? Yeah, right. This dog is more emotionally damaged than I am. But seriously, I mean, same thing. Like I live in an apartment complex, so not only is she banned because she's a pit bull, but she's banned because she's 50 pounds, and we have a 25-pound weight limit. But not for nothing, man. Like there's a ton of Frenchies around here that are absolute assholes compared to her. Yeah. So I don't regret it. So that's awesome. She's a huge part of my life. I mean, realistically, I joke around about it all the time, but like people will say like, why do you work so much? Like, because realistically, I need to get out of this apartment. I need to get into a backyard, and I need her to be able to like enjoy her life more. So I think before we went live, I don't remember, Ben, you weren't on yet, but I think just you were on, Justin, and we were talking about it where I was talking about my girlfriend and some future plans that I had. And I said like, like that is a huge reason of why I do work so hard and work, long hours, or I come home and like, just because I leave the office, I don't shut it down. Like you guys know, like how many times have I texted or talked to you guys at like midnight about things? And most of the time it's industry related. So, and for me, it's like, if I was like single and alone and didn't want a family and things like that, like I wouldn't be doing this. I'd probably be a bartender and, making 75 grand a year and just living my life way less stressed out. But like, what's the point of doing well if you can't like enjoy it with people? So that's why. I mean, really, it sounds super cliche, but like, and probably not like something that someone from this industry would normally like talk about, but it's a huge part of my life. It's the only part of my life is these two, is my girlfriend and the one that's, I don't know what she's doing. She's giving up right now under the couch, but
that's awesome, man.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we normally go 2 hours here, and it feels like we have gotten a lot of content out. So, Greg, if you want to shout out your personal stuff so people could find you.
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram, which is pretty much the only thing that I use to do anything. It's the Supwolf. Obviously, I'm probably tagging on a lot of the Musclesport stuff, but definitely follow the brands: Musclesport USA, Kodiak Sups, Purge Sups. Follow me, and I'll end up tagging all of them. I am going to tease one thing, if you don't mind, because I got the bottle on my desk today.
Oh, hell yeah!
So that's up to you, Ben, if I'm allowed, since this is hosted by Press Pile. We're launching 3 protein flavors. I'm going to start teasing them next week. I'm going to show you guys one of them, and the only reason I'm going to show you one of them is because it's an older flavor that we're bringing back, and it's in new branding. So I feel like I'm not giving away too much about it, but it is Lean Whey, and it is introducing what the new Lean Whey is going to look like. And
that's s'mores.
So that is s'mores, and I'll probably post something a little later so you can see all the intricacies in the label and what we're doing with our new branding and everything. But this stuff is going to absolutely fucking crush, because like while we are doing the rebranding, we're doing some reformulating. We're actually not changing this formula at all. The only thing that we changed differently on the Lean Whey, and we didn't even market it. So like if you buy Lean Whey, we now disclose how much of each protein we're putting in there. So there is like the muscle matrix, that's still a prop line in here. That's like the L-carnitine, fiber salt, things like that. But the actual protein down in the other ingredients, you will be able to find out like how much of each we're putting in there, because it is a blend between. Yeah. So there is that. I
love the seal at the top. The s'mores on the top.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, dude. We're going to you guys will see probably the branding a little bit more when I'm not in a dimly lit apartment, but we're doing some crazy stuff. I think I was talking to Sam from Glaxon about it today, actually, and he was looking at it and like this, what I feel, it does not take any sort of branding from any other company at all. So like it's something that I don't think anyone's ever really seen before in like the way that we're doing it, but I think it's cool. It's my little baby where I get to finally rebrand something almost 100% the way that I want to do it. So
nice.
I'm proud of it.
Do the same content everyone else does and like drip chocolate syrup on it and stuff, and do slow-mo drips.
Don't do that.
It's funny because I know that who does all that content, but
we both joke about everyone using that one person.
Exactly. Yeah. So no, I'm not. Maybe something similar. It's so hard because like everyone might be like using that same content that gets the whole flavor aspect across. What's up?
Oh no, is there a content person that brands go to make these like
Send you their
advertisements
stuff.
like that?
Yeah,
There's
you'll appreciate their content.
There's a specific photographer who's extremely. I mean,
You can say it. I don't care.
No. I mean, I don't care. I don't want to give other people the access. So
just shoot it to me because that's interesting to me.
I'll send you their portfolio.
This is my prop blend. Yeah. She's my prop blend.
Oh, gendered it.
Right.
Yeah. Now everyone on the inside knows.
Dude, it's completely fine. Not everyone in the industry can pay for it. So, but
there you go. See?
So, no, super, super talented, like crazy talented. But, we do some different stuff with content. I mean, realistically, like we have some professional content on our pages, but if you look at Musclesport, like half of it is, and you can just tell from my tattoo, half of it just me going like this, so like out front of our building. So,
I need a tutorial someday on how you make such incredible shots with your iPhone. I've learned the steering wheel thing with the calf in the back. Yeah, I've learned that one, but I need to learn the grass shot outside that you do.
The grass we have. So where our office is, there's like almost no trees, so it's nice. Now, first of all, natural lighting. Natural lighting is the key. Second is to have an above average good looking hand, like I do. A nice.
Do you get manicures? Get them
I don't, but I take the picture far enough away, and I usually take a picture of like really cool branding so people don't look at my fingernails. Yeah. It's funny. My girlfriend's gonna watch this and be like, "You need a manicure." So that's the secret. But the whole Starbucks cup thing is a whole different animal of Instagram content. So.
All right. Well, I think I definitely got to call it there because my dog needs to go for a walk. I don't know about yours.
So does she.
Yeah.
She needs to do something. She's staring at me she's like, you got to go, dude. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been really fun. I think there's been a lot of good content here. I want to clip some up. I know Jacob's going to clip some up. So we will get those to you, Greg, if you want to utilize them in any way.
1,000%. Yeah.
Yep. I know that you are one of the few brands that actually utilizes the content. So that'll be really cool. I personally can't thank you enough for being on with us. This has been a long time coming.
Yep.
No, man, first of all, it has been a long time coming just doing anything with you in general because we've known each other for years at this point. But and I'm still thinking it's sometime before 2025 or at least the 2024 election, I'll get you product. So
yeah, for anyone who's still watching, there's one shipping label that Greg has had printed out since last summer that whenever I will go buy the stuff. Like I don't mind spending the money on the supplements, but anytime I even mention I'm just gonna order it, he sends me a picture of the same fucking shipping label that he took last year, and I'm like, oh, maybe he'll send it this time because he's in New York and I'm in Jersey. Like we're 2 hours apart at most with all the traffic in the world. I could literally just order it, but anytime I say it, he's like, no, don't worry, I'll send it to you. Never sends it. So
I promise you, it is going out Friday. You could, if you saw pictures of it, there's tracking down at the bottom. Just pop that into UPS and you'll see it. But yeah, man, no, it's been a long time coming, and like I appreciate you guys for having me on. This is awesome. I love being able to shoot the shit about industry stuff that we don't normally get to talk about.
Awesome.
Cool.
I'm gonna end the stream here.